Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Clovis City Council meeting of May 13th. We appreciate you attending tonight. I'll call this meeting to order, and I'll invite Councilmember Pierce to lead us in the flag salute. Apologies. If I could ask that we have a moment of silence. Clovis Police Department lost an officer last week, unexpectedly, a young officer at age 31. So if we might take a moment and reflect on his work in our community, the difference he made here, and sending love and prayers to his family, I would appreciate that. Thank you. His name is Josiah Ford. His father was a longtime City of Clovis employee, and Josiah wanted to be a Clovis police officer for as long as I knew him. So it's a tremendous loss to our city and certainly most of all to his family. So thank you for that moment. Roll call comes next.
Councilmember Baskell.
Here.
Councilmember Bessinger.
Here.
Councilmember Moanatua. Here. Councilmember Pierce.
Here.
And Mayor Ashbeck.
I'm here. First up tonight is a joyful presentation of a proclamation declaring May 2024 as Special Olympics NorCal Month. Molly, and would you and your guests like to join us up here? And I've asked Councilmember Baskell to read the proclamation to you all.
Okay. The City of Clovis proclamation declaring May as Special Olympics NorCal Month. Whereas Special Olympics Northern California provides free year-round programs for children and adults with intellectual disabilities, offers training and competition in 11 sports, inclusive school programs, health and wellness activities, leadership training, and more. And whereas their programs transform athletes into leaders and promote acceptance, unity, and respect throughout Northern California. As a regional Special Olympics chapter, they pride themselves on driving progress locally while taking part in a bigger movement toward a more inclusive world. And whereas Special Olympics was founded in 1968 by Eunice Kennedy Shriver, in 1995, Special Olympics California divided into two chapters, Northern California and Southern California, to better serve local communities. And whereas the mission of Special Olympics Northern California is to create an inclusive community where people with and without disabilities can make connections, develop healthy lifestyles, achieve success, and experience the joy of sports. And whereas their vision to live in a world where the values of unity and respect are woven into the Northern California community and brought to life through the power of sports, envisioning positivity and inclusivity beyond the playing field, where the unique gift of people with and without intellectual disabilities are all celebrated together. And whereas their program spans 41 counties in Northern California and serve thousands of athletes, students, families, volunteers, and coaches. And whereas opening an office in Clovis is a testament to the need of the region and the growth of the organization. Having a physical space in the heart of the Central Valley allows more access to programs and services, resulting in a more inclusive community for all. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Clovis City Council, on behalf of the citizens of Clovis, declare May 24th as Special Olympics NorCal Month, signed by the mayor.
Thanks, Councilor Baskell. Welcome, Molly.
Thank you so very much. On behalf of Special Olympics Northern California, we just can't thank you enough for this tremendous honor. At Special Olympics, we believe that special isn't what we are, it's what we do. Our athletes are doing incredible things in our community, and it's a privilege to support them. Opening an office right here in Clovis signifies the growth of our organization and the need for our programming and our services. So thank you for recognizing the bravery of our athletes and the importance of inclusion throughout our community. We hope to see you at our official office ribbon cutting next week, Tuesday the 21st at 11 a.m. You're all welcome to come. And I would just like to take a moment to share that we are here today with some of our local athletes that are residents of Clovis, coaches, staff, and then also acknowledge the Clovis Police Department. Special Olympics is very privileged to be a charity of choice for law enforcement worldwide, and we have a very special relationship with the Clovis Police Department, and we are honored to accept this proclamation with the Clovis Police Department here joining us. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Molly. Tell us where your office is.
We are at Toll House in Sunnyside.
Okay.
Right across the street from Crave Cookie.
A landmark of note that we don't want to forget. Close here, you're close by here.
Yes, very close.
Very close.
Right in the heart of Clovis, and we just could not be more excited.
That's, well, welcome. We're glad to have you here. Anyone else want to make a comment?
Yeah.
Sure.
I like being with Special Olympics because it helps me grow friendships, and I love playing the sports that they option.
Wonderful.
I grew up in Special Olympics. I was 8 years old, started, and I've been doing gymnastics, skiing, and what else? Our sports.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much. And this is my first time here. The city of Clovis. It's super nice. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Sorry. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm Cody Ruin, and I'm very lucky to be part of the Special Olympics. I've been with Special Olympics since 2015, thanks to a guy named Coach Mike. And I've loved Special Olympics ever since. And I was very lucky to go up to Seattle in 2018 soccer tournament, and my team got the silver medal.
Very nice. Very nice.
And I will continue to do any sports with Special Olympics that I think will help me improve on skills and strengths. Gracias.
Gracias to you too. We're glad you're here. Thank you, Molly and all, for being here. We appreciate you very much. Thank you so much. Sure, of course. Welcome to Clovis. Next up is public comments. This is a time for members of the public to, if they have an item to bring before the council that is within our jurisdiction but not on the agenda tonight, now would be that time. Is there anyone that fits in that category? Mr. Rollins?
Good evening, council members. I'm a business owner here in town, and it concerns me that our police staffing levels are, my understanding is 2009. I know that we've got an upcoming budget discussion, a little bit of it tonight, and it'll be continued. But I really want to encourage you that, having public safety affects everything. Whether it's just our people do they feel okay to go walk on the trails? I walk on some of the trails. There are homeless that are a little crazy on those trails, and they're leaving trash messes. I'm not completely blaming anybody. Some of those people are crazy, but they need help. Whether that's for them to dry out from whatever they're on, or they need mental health services, or sometimes they just need a hand up. So I don't know what can be done there, but I see that as a larger part of public safety. And if we had more officers that were available to go out and address these issues, it would make a real difference to our entire city. Our Clovis way of life is special because you can go do whatever you want and you don't have to look over your shoulder. I go to certain parts of Fresno and I feel like I have to watch all the time. I'm proud that Clovis isn't that way, but I'm seeing more and more signs that things aren't quite as okay. And so I want you to really prioritize trying to get the staffing up to a full 2024 levels. We're 15 years behind roughly on staffing levels for police. Please make it a priority in the next budget. I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Others? And I will note for the record, we have one piece of correspondence, and it's an email received regarding some concerns about butterfly gardens. So I'm sure the police have seen that. Oh, that's you. Oh, I didn't know you were here. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Letitia Navarrete. I'm a tenant at Butterfly Gardens.
Oh, okay.
Lately, there's been ongoing stuff. I know some unlawful detaining over there. I know a lot of people didn't want us here, and I understand why. I truly do, because a lot of the tenants there do need more help than what they do, and I try to do the best of my ability. I help and I talk to everybody there. I'm like the voice of Butterfly Gardens for all the tenants there. But issue had arise to my attention that about people meeting somebody on Facebook stating that they lived at our residence. And as they leave our residence, they were getting pulled over and arrested. Well, so it happened to be that all these 6 people that got pulled over leaving Butterfly Gardens, 4 of them did not even know I stood there, but heard in the streets that I did. And are all friends of my Facebook, okay? And I got pulled over. So I do have a past. I haven't lived that past 4 years now. And now for it to arise and people to be inquiring me puts my life in danger, and I was threatened, but I do have issue of calling the police because that's how away my son died 6 years ago. So I'm working on that. But it's something that needs to be taken into consideration and looked at, that using our address is not something you should do, because there are some of us that do have a past and who are trying to change their lives, and that people are going to be focusing on, especially if all these people are my Facebook friends. I work with people, and I still try to get people out the mud. I came there. I came from the streets. I was homeless. I did all that, and I'm trying to get my life together, but it's hard to get together if I'm having all these little, speed bumps, I don't know what they are, in my way. And my life is at risk, and I just want it to be looked at. They can just somewhat give a different address, or why this isn't happening. Why are they doing it? And I just feel that it needs to be addressed, because my concern is someone calling me telling me they're going to shoot up our apartment complex is on safety for all of us, regardless of what they do, whether they're good or bad. We're talking about our lives here, and I just wanted to address that. Thank you.
Leticia, have you raised this with the managers at
Their office was closed today, but I did talk to Exodus today. I talked to Gabriel, and he did that, and I sent an email up to Upholdings and to Community Management.
Okay. As I know that our police department has frequent interactions with folks at Butterfly Gardens. So, and there are some of our police leadership and officers here, so they hear you and can take that back and kind of consider that. Would you be interested in meeting and talking with the police officer now? Would that?
Yes, I would, because at nighttime, well, until 10, I do monitor the hallways. I do make sure there's nobody in. That's what I do.
Okay.
I am well known in the streets, you know, and I have a rapport, and I'm well respected, so it's not too hard.
Okay.
You know?
So could I ask one of the officers or someone, would you mind visiting with Ms. Navarrete out in the foyer and just getting a little more information, and then we could have more to go on for the PD? Is that okay? So the officer right behind you is going to chat with you outside. Thank you so much for being here. Anyone else? All right. Next are ordinances and resolutions. With respect to the approval, the reading of the title shall be deemed a motion to waive a reading of the complete resolution ordinance. And unless there is a request by a council member that the resolution or ordinance be read in full, further reading shall be deemed waived by unanimous consent of the council. Next up are consent calendar. These items are considered routine in nature. They're acted on in with one vote. Unless a council member requests an individual item be pulled from that consent calendar. Any council member wishing to pull a particular item on here? Anyone? Public? All right, bring it back, and I would entertain a motion on consent calendar items 2 through 8.
I'll make a motion to approve consent calendar, items 2 through 8.
I'll second that.
All right, there's a motion by Councilmember Basco and a tie for a second between, I don't know, council member, one of the two of them. Any other discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, and motion carries. Public hearings tonight, there's sort of two categories of public hearings, some ordinance work, cleanup and otherwise, and then we'll begin our budget process for fiscal year 25. Thank you. First up is an ordinance to consider an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Clovis, amending sections 5.29, .102, 5.29.203, 5.29.301 of Chapter 5.29 of Title 5 of the Clovis Municipal Code pertaining to definitions and regulations relating to multiple responses to nuisance violations. Matthew Lear is our Deputy City Attorney. Welcome.
Mayor, if I may jump in, sorry.
Yeah.
So before you, there's 4 ordinance amendments, all related to the police department and code enforcement activities. The group of us have come together to work on these together. I wanted to introduce our Deputy City Attorney, Matt Lear, as well as we'll have Corporal Alcorn and Corporal O'Brien presenting these items tonight.
But we're going to do them, you want to read them all at once, or you just,
They'll be separately.
Okay,
I just wanted to provide a little intro for you all.
Thanks, Andy. All right, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. So this first item we have for you is an ordinance amendment to bring the city's multiple response ordinance into compliance with state law. As of January 1st, AB 1418 took effect, which makes it to where you can't have a ordinance that penalizes someone based on mere contact with law enforcement. We've already worked with law enforcement regarding how the multiple response ordinance is to be affected, and so the city's practice since January 1st has been in compliance with the state law. This is just a technical amendment to bring the city's ordinance into compliance with state law as well. Please let me know if you have any questions regarding this, any further questions regarding this one.
Thanks. May I call you Matt?
Yes, of course.
Matt, thank you. Any questions for
Matt, I want to understand this. So this makes our interaction more strict? Is that what I'm trying to understand? Because before we would work with whoever is calling, and because we were just working with them, it's not official, and so we can't use that interaction as something to cite or to remove tenants. So this makes it where if we want to be serious, that first interaction, we're citing them? Is that, even if it's no fine, we can, I want to understand that.
Right, yeah, it's not necessarily, so it's not a fine, it's just a warning. So in the first contact, because it has to be more than mere contact. So before, the way the ordinance, the multiple response ordinance was kind of going was, we'd use those initial interactions if there was some kind of issue that PD had to involve themselves with. And so that's the first interaction. And the second one, where they find the same violation occurring again, violation of multiple response, then PD would issue a citation for the multiple response, in correspondence with the multiple response ordinance. Sorry, a lot of the word ordinance. Sorry. So what this does is it just basically codifies that prior to utilizing multiple response ordinance, you have to at least, there has to either be an initial citation or a written warning. So on that first encounter, if there's a noise violation, if there's a party, or if there's some kind of other issue that PD has to respond to, they say, okay, listen, here's your written warning. If this happens again, you're going to be issued a subsequent citation, and that could be subject to the multiple response ordinance.
Can you
To clarify,
clarify, like,
so there's
example, so that way, what would you do? Will we still operate the same, or will it be where, because right now you're not doing anything, you're being very community-oriented, meaning you would go, got some complaints, and it's not official, you're trying to work with the community, and now that first time is much harsher?
it is.
I read it that way, and so I didn't like it. I wanted us to remain the same.
So the MRO process, the way that the PD does business is not changing at all.
Okay.
The only difference is, prior to this change in the code, it didn't say you had to do a written warning. And either way, we were still doing written warnings and then proceeding with the MRO process. However, now it's written down that you have to have a written warning or an arrest first. And we're not MROing every house we go to. This is for significantly nuisance properties that we continue to go to over and over and over regarding all kinds of things. It could be barking dogs that we go to 4 times a week, loud parties every Saturday, Sunday. So it's rare. We don't go through these. I mean, we're not doing this weekly. It's pretty It's pretty rare when we do this, and there's zero change on how we do business. We've always done it this way. It's just now it's written down. You shall do a written warning or an arrest prior to doing the MRO process, which is what we've been doing for years.
Okay. Thank you. That really helps me understand. Thank you.
So, wait, let me ask one question. So just to be clear, so I could go to a house, you could go to a house, I'm not going to house, you could go to the house 4 times, a barking dog, and you could never issue a warning. You could just check in, something going on, but you don't ever have to issue a warning, right? But if you want to execute on this ordinance, you have to issue a written warning or an arrest.
Correct.
But you can go 4 times, check in, be community-oriented, and that's all the same. Is that what you're
Correct,
saying?
and that's what we do 90% of the time.
That's what you mostly do.
It's when it gets excessive is when this process comes into play.
Got it. Sorry.
Thank you. I assume, let's say using a barking dog is the issue. The warning that you're going to issue, would that be an administrative citation warning?
Yes, it would be.
And you could, let's say you knock on the door, the dog's barking, people aren't answering, maybe they're not home. If you issued it to resident at 1033 Fifth Street, would that suffice as a warning, or does it have to have their actual name on it?
So we would do certified mail on those ones. We'd follow up the following day and try to get a hold of them through phone or get a hold of them in person to issue them the actual warning. If not, do certified mail, see if it gets issued that way. We're not posting it just to make sure, we just want to make sure that they got the actual warning so they're aware of what's coming next if they continue that behavior.
It kind of puts a burden on us to do that, which of course our friends in Sacramento are more than happy to do. I also assume that if you're going to 1033 Fifth Street for a consistent barking dog, I'm assuming on the premise history there'll be something about issuing warning citations that you guys, that you're taking action on that residence, I'm assuming.
Correct. If there's a written warning given, there's a premise on there. And we can see all the prior calls for service and see what has been done in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? All right, thank you. Open the public portion. Anybody in the audience have any comment on this particular action tonight? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the City Council for a motion, if that's in order.
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance of the City Council of the City of Clovis, amending sections 5.2, 9.102, 5.29.203, and 5.29.301 of Chapter 5.29 of Title 5 of the Clovis Municipal Code pertaining to definitions and regulations relating to multiple responses to nuisance violations.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item number 10 is an ordinance of the City of Clovis, City Council of the City of Clovis, amending sections 5.22 .02 and 5.22.05 of Chapter 5.22 of Title 5 of the Clovis Municipal Code pertaining to regulations for the delivery of medicinal marijuana. Matt?
Thank you. So this item is basically being brought back to council because earlier this year in January, we had put before the council an ordinance amendment to bring the city's medicinal marijuana delivery ordinance into compliance with state law. So basically, state law, SB 1186 took effect January 1st, and it requires that cities allow delivery of medicinal marijuana within their jurisdiction. The City Council approved that ordinance in its basic form just to allow the delivery, but Council also directed our office to continue to work with the police department in coming up with some further regulations regarding those medicinal marijuana deliveries. And so, consistent with state law, the city is able to enforce regulations that the Department of Cannabis Control already enforces themselves. So what I've done is, or what we've put together is a ordinance amendment to include more regulations regarding how medicinal marijuana deliveries occur in the city, such as hours of operation, what kind of IDs and licenses that are required to be shown, inventory lists of what items are being delivered and where to, and just different sorts of regulations consistent with what the Department of Cannabis Control has, except in this case, instead of the Department of Cannabis Control enforcing, we would be able to enforce it under the municipal code itself. And if you have any specific questions on those, please let us know.
Does that conclude your comments, Matt?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Matt on this ordinance?
Yeah, first, I just wanted to say thank you for bringing this back with these regulations. I was not supportive of changing the ordinance, even though it brought us in line with state law, because I know that this is not something that our community really wanted, but bringing this back with these additional regulations, that is exactly what our community would want in this situation, so I thank you for your work on that. I just had one clarification on the part, I don't know if it's in the ordinance language, but in the kind of executive summary part there at the end of the second bullet point, where it talks about the different things they have to have, and they have to be able to provide them upon request by law enforcement. I just want to clarify, what would precede that type of an interaction where law enforcement would have the opportunity or cause to request those types of certifications?
So that would occur during just a traffic stop. So if they ran a stop sign, they're speeding, obviously as police officers, we don't know who is delivering medical marijuana. They don't post on their cars they're delivering. So if we do pull them over and we see marijuana in the car and they explain to us, hey, I'm a medical marijuana delivery driver, at that point, that's when we can request to see their inventory list, their logs, make sure they're of age, they have their certificates and those certifications.
Are those requirements different than communities around us? So, for example, if you got pulled over in the city of Fresno or Selma or Visalia, it doesn't matter. Is that standard for police to ask about inventory logs and age of driver and all of that? Or is Clovis stricter in our kind of enforcement of this ordinance?
I try to actually look at City of Fresno's, and I haven't seen anything specific as to these. So we might be more strict than well, at least from what I could tell, we're more strict than the city of Fresno in regards to regulating medicinal marijuana deliveries.
Okay, thanks.
And Madam Mayor, I will add, I think you are more strict than a lot of the outlying communities, because when the state law changed, there were several communities, Clovis being one of them, that banned deliveries altogether of all marijuana when that was allowed. The state law changed last year, said, okay, you can ban marijuana, but not medicinal marijuana. So that's the reason for the change. Several communities just changed it the way that it was changed in Clovis earlier this year. Okay, we won't ban medicinal marijuana deliveries, but the fact that you're putting more teeth into it to be able to regulate and make sure that it is medicinal marijuana and make sure that every ounce of marijuana they have in their vehicle is for medicinal purposes, that I think is stronger than any other, at least outlying area.
And what would happen if you found them to be out of compliance with this? They don't have an inventory list or some of the other things that are noted in the staff report. What would happen then?
At this point, we'd seize what they have in their vehicle, and then you'd have to contact the state who issued the license for them to do this, go that direction. Or if it's a really large amount where clearly they're selling marijuana on their own, then we do the criminal aspect of marijuana for distribution charges.
Okay, thanks. Did you have a question?
Yeah. So we are putting the state's regulations just in our regulations. So if they delivered at 10:05, then that's when it's a violation because it's 6 to 10, right? That's what I saw so these time frames are now in our code.
Right.
So if they were going before 6 o'clock and after 10, regardless if they're legal, it's outside that time period, we can stop them.
Yes, and so,
Okay.
like, what's interesting about the state law that was passed that says you shall not pass a law that requires certain limitations on when deliveries can occur, but it does say that you can pass laws consistent with the division, with the Department of Cannabis Control, what they've already, what regulations they have, within their own regulations, I put in the same, time restriction. So if they are delivering, like you said, before 6 or after 10 p.m., that would be a violation, even if it is medicinal marijuana. Because that's consistent with what they should have to abide by state regulation anyways.
I appreciate you bringing this back. And my next question is to follow up with the mayor's question. We do not have the ability to actually put dollar figures on fines for violations. I know it says that it's a misdemeanor per Chapter 2, Title 1 of the code. Is that code then give specific fines so that way it's more than just, hey, we'll send it up to the state and see what the state does?
Well, I think because it's I think basically any violation of the municipal code is considered a misdemeanor, and any misdemeanor violation pursuant to the government code is up to $1,000 fine. So the city could, consistent with state law and consistent with municipal code, issue a citation and fine for like $1,000 per violation. Because I think the way we put it in here in the enforcement provision is that it is a misdemeanor violation of the code to violate this section.
Right. And what is our practice then? I mean, I know it says that, so that means we can also just not fine?
We could. So if it was their first offense, typically a first offense if we do the municipal code violation, we do the $100 fine.
Okay.
And then move from there if it's second offense. However, this is new. With this right here, we would definitely contact the licensing board, whoever gave him the license to do this. And I would imagine there's consequences on that side to have his license revoked to continue this business. But that would be, we haven't done that yet, obviously, this is new.
My thought is this is adding more work for you. And so why not go for the 1,000? So that way, every time you stop someone, you're doing work. Someone's gonna have to send something up. And we never asked for it. We never had this issue. So now there's an opportunity. Why not put that straight right in if we can do it? And so I know I like the leniency too, but this is something in which our city and our citizens are very firm on. And is there a way to put that in right away to Scott or to Matt, or will it change the department, how we are? I just think that you're doing a lot of work.
I agree with you. On this kind of violation, jump straight to 1,000 would be ideal. That way there's actually a punishment. I mean, $100 fine may not be much versus $1,000 fine, so I agree.
They make so much more. So 1,000's nothing. And if you're just going to send it to the state, they're like, don't worry, next will just be 100. $250, now $5. And so, I'm just saying, Matt, can you put that straight in where it's $1,000, or is that against what we can do? Matt's gone. And I don't know if my peers would agree, but that's what I would say. Whatever that max is, that I believe that is, I'm assuming that is the desire of this council to be as firm as possible. So that's my proposal.
Yeah, I think we can put it in. I would like to double check that we can, because there are certain offenses, I think, that we do jump from just the level 1 administrative citation from the 100 to 200 to 500, whatever. So there are instances where we can, on the initial violation, go up to 1,000. This is, I'm looking at the penalty provision right now. It's considered a misdemeanor, punishable, but it also gives the city the ability to pursue other available remedies, including, but not limited to, injunctive relief and administrative citations. So if that's the desire, I guess what I would do, I want to double check that and make sure. If we want to hold this item over, we could bring it back at the next meeting if that's your desire to include that, or the direction, if the direction is tonight to approve with that change, if it's available, and then I would bring that back at the next meeting. We could consider it introduced with that now. And if for some reason it's not able to proceed with $1,000 minimum or initial offense, then we would bring that back and we'd have to reintroduce a different ordinance, if that makes sense. So if you wanted to introduce it tonight with that, I'm comfortable with that. But if we find out that we can't do it, then we'll go back to this version at the next meeting.
I think my question is, what happens to the second offense? I mean, I assume the 100, 200, the ramped up is to, like, try to get your attention over time. Maybe we don't want the, I mean, I'm not arguing in favor of that, but if you start at the top, what happens with the second offense?
We can't exceed the $1,000.
So the second one is another $1,000?
Yeah, it would at most be a misdemeanor, and that's the max. So it'd be $1,000. We'd start at 1,000, and each subsequent one would be 1,000.
I just think it has to cover the cost to the police department. That was my thought, because this is not free. Your time isn't free, the process isn't free, the hearing and the citation, the paperwork, and all that. So, and so $1,000 probably covers all that administrative time, and your time. So, I mean, that makes sense. I just wanted to be clear on what the second one was. So it's $1,000 every time until, you add up some amount that's a different problem. Former Chief, do you have a comment on this?
Well, I was just going to say that some of that's limited by law,
Right.
because this is a misdemeanor crime. So, to be able to say, hey, we want to charge you more than 1,000, the law doesn't really let us do that.
But you can charge 1,000 each time, I guess.
Each time,
that's
yes.
That's what I was trying to
But
be
because
clear.
it is a misdemeanor, you still have the court process and all those things to go through. So, while it'd be great to say, hey, we're going to give you a $10,000 fine, we really don't have the say ultimately in that because of the court process.
Yeah.
So.
As long as we could just do $1,000 each time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
you could do.
Okay.
But it still goes back to the courts for ultimate
Okay.
decision on the fines and stuff because of the misdemeanor nature.
Police captain?
How about,
What's the police captain
quick,
say?
yeah, for the city attorney, if we handled it as a administrative citation, we could do the 1,000, and then I guess you'd have some guy who's doing the delivery. Do we cite the business that he's delivering for, or do we cite him or her?
I believe the business is citable in here. Is that correct, Matt? If you can confirm either one, because it's the business that's operating it. It's not just the delivery driver, him or herself.
Because if he's delivering marijuana not under that provision, he would be in violation of health and safety code?
Correct.
Okay. This is just another example of we have a ballot measure that says, yes, we will respect your local control, and as soon as the Bureau of Cannabis Control goes into a reality, they immediately try to take it from us. So this is just another example of that. So I agree with Bong. If we have the ability to take a stern approach on this, I think we should.
All right. Any other questions for staff? Anyone in the public wishing to comment on this item? I remember your name because I remember your initials, so Mr. Scott. turn your microphone on, do you mind? Thank you. There you go.
I live at 341 Evergreen, near Armstrong and Bullard. I just wanted to say about this, I spent 45 years as a truck driver. And everywhere I went, if I had any contact with the police, all of that stuff had to be there, perfectly done every time. If I made a mistake on my logbook, I'd get a fine. I've been retired for about 10 years now, but back then it was $250. It came on me. I had to have and I was delivering legal stuff, right? So the idea that you want to put the same restrictions on this, I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, I thought you had a new, thank you. Any other comments? All right, we'll close the public portion and bring it back to the council.
Scott, is it an approval or is it a continuance with it coming back up?
Well, like I said, I think I'm comfortable with you guys if you want to introduce it with the $1,000 initial administrative citation. We can confirm that. So the ordinance would be considered introduced if that's the desire of the council. But ultimately, an ordinance has to be adopted at a subsequent meeting. And so if between now and the next meeting or whenever it comes back, we determine that, we can't start with $1,000. We got to start and then get up to 1,000. We'll bring it back, and then that modified ordinance would have to be introduced, and then that would be approved. So this is not, even if it's approved tonight, on introduction, it's not final. Okay.
I'll make a motion to consider introduction of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Clovis adding Section 5.10.25 to Chapter 5.10 of Title 5 of the Clovis Municipal Code relating to, I think I'm reading the wrong one. I am reading the wrong one. Yeah, okay. I would restate my motion to consider an ordinance of the City Council, introduction of the city ordinance, amending sections 5.22.02 and 5.22.05 of Chapter 5.22 of Title 5 of the Clovis Municipal Code pertaining to regulations for the delivery of medicinal marijuana with the addition of a violation being a $1,000 fine fee and a misdemeanor for the misdemeanor. Something like that? Upon initial violation. Second.
Motion and second. Is there other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 11 is considering an introduction of an ordinance of the City Council adding Section 5.10.25 to Chapter 5.10 of Title 5 of the Clovis Municipal Code. This one relating to massage establishments. Switch. What'd you do with the attorney?
This one's going to be on us.
Oh, I see. It disappeared. All right.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. So this is a proposed addition to the Clovis Municipal Code regarding massage establishments. Currently in the city, we have 77 known active or massage parlors and 8 mobile massage businesses. Currently, we do not have a massage ordinance that includes a moratorium period for the property owners. We have a revocation process, but it allows the massage to get shut down, massage parlor to get shut down, and essentially reopen up in a few weeks under a different name in the same building. This happens frequently. The last one that was shut down, the same thing happened. We went by there again recently, and sure enough, it's a new business, new name. Due to limited resources, in order to do inspections on all 77 massage parlors, obviously that's a task. So having this moratorium in place, it really helps shut down these illicit massage parlors, which also combats their human sex trafficking. So the recommended changes that we have, it's a 5-year moratorium period for revoked businesses, meaning when they shut down, the owner of that business or that building cannot allow another massage parlor to be in there for 5 years. This is in kind of the recommendation of the California Massage Therapy Council. They kind of recommend anywhere from 3 to 10 years regarding moratoriums. The reason we went with 5 is we kind of looked at similar cities in size of population and police, and they were at 5 years as well, which is how we ended up with 5 years. Some of the impacts for this, that it helps the city mitigate criminal activity associated with massage businesses. It helps eliminate the revolving door that we see, which is very common when they just reopen under a new name. Mitigate labor, sex trafficking, victimization, and it just makes the city as a whole know that if you go get a massage, you don't have to worry about anything unusual happening in there, which is an unfortunate thing to have to worry about. However, it's a part of massage businesses everywhere, including Clovis. Do you guys have any questions regarding the moratorium?
Yes.
Question?
Yes. Do we have some that are in current violation, and can this be retro to those to really set the example right away?
It can't be it can't go back to those ones.
Okay.
Once it's in place, then it will take effect.
So only future violations?
In the future violations, once it's in place.
And the requirement for something like this, Scott, I'm assuming since there's 7 identified, we don't have to notify every single business under this category for this?
As far as the new municipal code?
Yeah, so we're
You mean like a specific notice to each massage?
Yeah, because it's affecting their industry.
No, I mean,
Okay.
it'll be publicly posted, and we're required by law to issue a notice whenever an ordinance is adopted, so the typical notice will go out. But that's published in a newspaper typically, or the Business Journal, or wherever it is required to be. So.
And I really appreciate you letting us know that the Director of Law and Code Enforcement of the Massage Therapy Council, this is something that they also recommend for cities. And lastly, because of what potentially happens in the shady businesses of sex trafficking, and I think this is something that we should really support you guys on to help you do the work to better our community as a whole. So thank you.
I agree. I think it'll make a big difference, especially when the first one happens to them and the word gets spread around pretty quick.
Diane?
I just have 2 questions. First, I agree with Vong. This is very important, and so I appreciate your work on this, and I thought the report in the packet was very helpful too, referencing the other organizations. So one question, currently, what has the coordination or interaction and communication been with the building owners and such when this has happened? Are they aware of what the problem was, and they just don't really have the ability to keep these people from just doing the revolving door, shifting the business license to a friend or family member and doing the exact same thing, like you say, just a couple weeks later? Has there been any opportunity to work with those building owners?
To my knowledge, they are not aware.
Okay.
I don't believe there's been any contact with the prior business or the building owners. It falls primarily back on the business owners who generally aren't on site. It's usually employees there. We follow up with the business owners, but there was never any contact with the building owners.
And then my second question would be, we obviously have a lot of fantastic organizations that work with sex trafficking victims and human trafficking issues. Is there an opportunity, I know you guys are very good about that, to coordinate with those organizations when we encounter a massage establishment that might be engaged in that kind of activity, to make sure that anyone that we do come across who's been victimized has the resources they need through those organizations?
So when we do these operations at these massage parlors, part of it is letting them know they do have rights and we have help available to them. And if they choose to take the help, we can set it up for them as well.
I have a question. This might be obvious, which is why I can't see it. So the way I read this ordinance is trouble in a building, in a suite of an office in an office building. 5-year moratorium for that building owner to not open a single massage parlor or whatever they're called, in that whole building. Is that right?
It's in that specific, so if it's
in the same,
in that suite.
In that suite. So I could open one next door.
Correct. If it's not the address itself, it's the suite number.
It's the suite. And then how do you track the operator? So let's say I'm the operator of this business that's doing shady things, and I'm in Suite A, and now I want to move to a building across town and rent another building across town. Is there a way to track the owner as in addition to the location? Am I missing something? Because I can just move to another building and do it all over again in a different building. So how do we track the owner?
So you're correct. If they wanted to move to a different building, they could. However, the owner wouldn't be able to because, so Corporal Sweeten, he's the one who runs the massage. He's not available today, which is why we're here. But he has a list of every massage business owner as well as all their employees. Every employee is licensed through the city, so he knows who should and shouldn't be doing massages there.
Okay.
So if they tried to open up a new one and it was the same owner, he would see that and it'd be flagged where he'd bring it up to not allow that business.
But if it's the owner's brother-in-law's next door neighbor, some of that we just don't know all of that. But from an owner-operator perspective, we have that record.
For the owner, we do. Yeah, if they have a next door neighbor who wants to open up a business in their name, if there's no way we know it's happening, we can't stop that, unfortunately.
I guess another example, though, that puts all the burden on the police department to do all of that work, to try important work, but still there's a cost for sure to the city to do that. Okay, that makes sense. Thanks. All right. No other questions? Open for public comment. Anyone in the audience wishing to comment on this item? It's like an auction. You should never stand up when I ask that question because I'm pretty sure you're going to talk about massage parlors, and I think your staff member's going to be, oh my God, why did I do that? All right, I'll close the public portion, bring it back to the council. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the consideration of introduction of Ordinance 24, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Clovis, adding Section 5.10.25 to Chapter 5.10 of Title 5 of the Clovis Municipal Code relating to massage establishments.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And finally, our last ordinance item tonight, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Clovis adding Chapter 5.35 to Title 5 of Clovis Municipal Code related to tobacco retailers.
Good evening. So we're asking for a amendment to include all tobacco licensed retailers through the state of California to be required to obtain a tobacco retailer's license through the Clovis Police Department. Right now, generally, there are 86 licensed tobacco retailers in the city of Clovis. We have no ordinance to regulate tobacco licensees, and that's from smoke shops up to big box stores, grocery stores, anything like that. And there's also no City of Clovis revocation process for tobacco retailers who are found in violation of any state or local laws. Basically what we found, or what we're asking for, is an amendment to the municipal code to require all of these state licensed retailers to obtain a local tobacco retailer's license through the Clovis Police Department. It will establish an application and licensing process for these retailers. The application process would include like a background check so we can ensure that they haven't been in violation of any prior state or local laws. And it'll specify violations to these tobacco retailers. And it'll identify penalties for the violations of the local ordinance. Of the current 86 licensed tobacco retailers in the city of Clovis, since February of 2023, we've inspected 46 of these. Some of them have been inspected up to 6 times due to multiple violations by just repeat offenders. Of those, 36 have actually been found in violation and out of compliance with state laws. The most common is with the flavored tobacco state law that came into effect in January of last year. Multiple tobacco retailers in the city of Clovis had made sales to minor decoys, working either with the police department or with the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, including sales of flavored and unflavored tobacco products, and that's to 16, 17-year-olds. State licensing primarily focuses on the tax evasion side of tobacco products. So we've worked closely with the Tax and Fee Administration, the Department of Justice, the Attorney General's Office, and Department of Public Health to try and combat this as we can. But without an local ordinance, our authority and our seizure our seizure authority is very limited. The City of Clovis can establish a tobacco retailer's license that focuses on protecting public health and keeping the hands out of our youth as opposed to the tax evasion laws that it primarily focuses on now. And that's it, if you have any questions.
True.
I have to assume that unlike ABC licensees where you have an overconcentration, have any cities come out with an overconcentration of tobacco where we can say, okay, we have too many in this area? Has anybody ever done that?
I don't know that there's any that have established like an oversaturation for tobacco ordinance or tobacco retailers. I've talked with a lot of different agencies who have established local ordinances or licensing ordinances, but it hasn't come up that they've established like an oversaturation like with ABC businesses.
When we've cited businesses for sales to minors, how old are we talking? We had a business a little bit at a stone's throw from here that was selling cigarettes to kids at Clark. Are we still having problems with some licensees selling to very young? I mean, I don't agree with, you're 19 years old, you can serve in the military, but you can't have a drink and you can't buy cigarettes. That doesn't make sense to me. But if you have a 15-year-old who's in high school, that's a whole different thing. Are we still seeing that? Have we, some of these citations or violations, were we talking high school kids?
Absolutely. So we generally use decoys who are between the ages of 14 and 18, or 14 and 19, depending on who's available at that time, what experience they have. We've seen sales to 16 and 17-year-olds through our decoys as well as the state decoys. It's primarily with the flavored tobaccos, and what we've seen is some of the businesses have made multiple sales to the state agencies as well as our decoys, the same businesses in Clovis.
And when we cite them, does the state take action on them also, or this just gives us the ability to revoke their license? Would that?
Correct. So it depends on what violations the retailer has had on the state level before, and then the Tax and Fee Administration will generally follow up if we forward them some kind of complaint, but they will want to run their own operation to see if they get a sale after the fact.
So if we had a problem retailer who just thumbed his nose or her nose at us, and we cited them 3 or 4 times for sales to 15-year-olds, we could revoke their license and they can no longer sell tobacco products? Is that?
Correct, and we can also seize all their products so that they're not just restocking the shelves and doing business as usual.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
I really appreciate the justification with regards to the hours and the manpower it takes to do sort of these inspections, and you laid it out very clearly, and I appreciate that. Once they pay, and the $1,000 is annually, $400 is sort of the application, and so they have to pay that one. Once they have a violation, the revocation is sort of depends on PD to revoke, or does that one violation revoke this permit, and then they would have to come back? Is it kind of like the dance clubs, nightclub?
Well, generally, yes. So generally, we'll have like a suspension period on the license, and then as they move through that, then we will actually go to full revocation.
Okay. And then, let me see. And you said that 74% of the inspections failed.
Correct.
That's a very high number.
Yeah, a little bit more than 76%, and that's from the smoke shops up to, again, bigger box stores like Vons and Save Mart and Walgreens, some of those larger stores that we've inspected.
And do you think this will help remedy that, or it just gives?
Absolutely, because right now, when we find violations, the violations generally go to whoever the clerk is that's currently making the sales or whatever, selling the product in charge of the store at the time. This actually goes after the licensee or the business owner.
Okay. All right. Hopefully it puts more in compliance and protects just make everybody do it legally, protect our kids.
Hopefully.
Thank you.
one question. I don't think Clovis, Mr. Fitzgerald, charges for fire inspections at businesses. Do we charge? Okay. Is there so the $1,000 license fees is enough to cover the cost of your inspection time? Is that fair to say? Is that where you're trying to recover the administrative costs and the time for the inspection? Because that is an expense also.
Yeah, so it would cover the inspections, the application process, as well as education. We've hosted at like Big Hat Days, we've had tobacco education booths to hopefully reach out to the community more and put out the dangers of vaping and smoking, especially to the youth.
And how will you communicate this to the 86 currently state licensed tobacco retailers in our city? And if this ordinance moves forward, when would this take effect? I plan on personally visiting all of them since it would fall under me, and dropping off a copy of the ordinance as well as the time frame. It would go into effect 30 days after it was adopted. Okay. So, and is there some grace period that you have 60 days to complete the process? And I mean, can you imagine how that part is going to roll out?
Yes, I believe we'd stay on track with some of our other businesses in the application period for the background process, which would be in a 30 to 45-day window. If we get a flood of all 86 turning in their applications at the same time, we'd allow for a greater grace period, but that 30-day window is what we'd aim for.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Any public comment on this particular ordinance? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion and bring this back to the council.
Make a motion to introduce an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Clovis regarding Chapter 5.35 to Title 5 of the Clovis Municipal Code relating to tobacco retailers.
I'll second that.
There's a motion, a second. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, team, for the work and the detail and translating what we try to communicate up here into something that actually makes sense. So thank you for your hard work. All right, I think I lost my agenda because I lost it. Wait, it's right here. Hold on. I know, but I can't find the piece of paper. All right, so tonight is the beginning of the fiscal year 24-25, thank you, budget process, and tonight we are going to begin that. Item 13 is review and introduction of the 2024-25 City of Clovis annual budget, the 5-year capital improvement program, and information regarding the Clovis successor agency. And tonight, our intent is to do departments listed under A through F, finance through general services, and then we will continue the fire and police department until the meeting of May 20th. So Jay is sitting up there all by himself to start it out, but I think, John, do you want to make some introductory comments on kind of your intention and how you see this process rolling out through completion?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. I'll go ahead and set the table, kind of let you know what we're going to talk about tonight and how the budget's going to roll out. Basically, tonight, what I'm going to do is go back and kind of remind council what we did with the 5-year forecast in March of this year. I'll turn it over to Andy then, who will cover the community outreach that we've done since August of last year. At which point, we'll turn it over to Jay, who's going to actually cover the introduction of the budget, and then we'll go department by department, indicating from the finance department through general services, with a plan to continue this item to the May 20th meeting, where we'll bring the police and fire and any other discussion council has. And then after that, what we're going to look at is bringing the item back to City Council on June 10th for you to consider adoption of it. And just note that our code does require that we have an adopted budget by June 30th. So we do have one meeting after that, but the plan would be to have the budget adopted by the June 10th meeting, and if we had to go to the 17th, we can go to the 17th. Going back to the 5-year forecast, if you recall, I showed you this. This is going to be the 5-year forecast from March of 2009. And the reason I showed it to you was because after I saw the March 2024 5-year budget, it reminded me of what we went through back coming out of the recession. And here you'll see, this is again the March of 2009, you'll see the significant amount of red that we had in the budget forecast out. And just a reminder of that. This is going to be the five-year forecast that you saw, March 11th, going from the current year out to 2028, 2029. And you can see similarly here in each of the years going out, we're forecasting that expenses will exceed revenues, driving a lot of red in these out years. A reminder of some of the highlights from the five-year forecast is going to be that we're seeing an accelerated pace of expenses, primarily driven by inflation. And while revenues are going up, they're not accelerating at the same rate as our expenses, creating financial challenges for the general fund. Jay's going to get into it. We have a $360 million total budget. We have about $111 million general fund budget. The focus of tonight's presentation will primarily be what between Jay and I and Andy is going to be on the general fund, and then we'll turn it over to the departments who are going to go through their specific funds. The third bullet there is going to be that with expenses exceeding revenues in all of the forecast years from the five-year forecast that I showed you for the general fund, we have some difficult choices to make in the years to come. We have, and again, specific to the general fund, we have insufficient resources to maintain the current level of service. When I say current operations, I mean the current level of service our residents have become accustomed to. Revenues are, again, projected to grow at a slower rate than our expenses. The only additional staff we added into the five-year forecast was 3 additional sworn officers in each of the 5 years. No other positions were approved. We've also eliminated transfers to the general government facilities for capital projects, which means that we have another year where we're not going to have money set aside to replace the 50-year-old roof above us. We've also eliminated additions to the emergency reserve. This chart just shows a comparison of total expenditures, which is going to be in red, and then total revenues, which is red. And if you take a look at the gap that's created here, this is going to be what's going to drive the $14.4 million that you saw on the previous. This is the difference there. Ending unrestricted balance is another chart that shows that 5 years out, we're going to have approximately a $14.4 million general fund negative amount in ending unrestricted fund balance. Sales tax is increasing, but for the current period, for the current year, 23-24, we're down 1%, which represents, Jay, help me out, a couple $1 million?
1.1, I believe.
Okay, represents $1.1 million. So we actually saw a decline in sales tax, and we're forecasting out for a 3% number for the remaining years. Correct. And this just shows you the growth out there. Property tax is exceeding, but it's not exceeding at the same rate as expenses are. And if you recall that property tax and sales tax represents a little over 80%. Jay will get into it in a little bit, but it represents 80% of the general fund budget. General fund is primarily is police and fire, which are general or discretionary spending. 87% of the total goes to police and fire. And just putting some facts in there because when we went out and did some of these surveys, a lot of people didn't realize how little the city gets of our property tax and sales tax. In the top section right there, property tax, for each one of us pays $100 paid in property tax. For every $100 paid in property tax in Clovis, the city receives $13. So we get 13% of all property taxes. As far as sales tax, we have approximately an 8% sales tax. So for every $100 taxable purchase, we as consumers pay approximately $8 in sales tax, of which the city receives 95 cents. So just an order of magnitude of what the city gets out of the total that's paid. I also wanted to just show a comparison of the value of city services that I've shown in prior years, but the average resident, 125,000 of us, pays approximately $70 per month for city services. This doesn't include the sewer, water, and trash, but on the left-hand box there, you'll see that $70 pays for one of these a month. 1 month of cable TV, 2 or 3 hardback books, 1 month at the gym or yoga, dinner for 2 nowadays, movie and snacks for a family of 4. Compared to what a resident gets for the $70, you get 24 hours police and fire protection, you get groomed parks and trees, you get safety lighting in streets, you get community events, economic development, a new senior center, recreation, paved and maintained roads, and a well-planned city. As far as continuing on with the general fund and costs for CalPERS, this is our retirement costs. You can see in the year 2021, the total amount was not working with me. In 2021, the total amount of the general fund was approximately $10 million. And if you take a look at 28-29 in the 5-year forecast, it's going to represent about $20 million, so doubling the cost of the retirement for general fund. Emergency reserves, as far as a percentage of expenditures, we don't have any forecast to add any in the 5-year forecast. So while we're keeping it at about 21 million, the percentage of total expenditures goes down. If you take a look at the year 21-22, we had approximately $24 million in there, and that was about 23%, with our overall goal of trying to get that up to 25%, compared to what we have in 28-29, which is still the $21 million, because the expenses have gone up, that goes down to 17%. Another chart is showing the full-time employees as a percentage of 1,000 residents. Going back in history, going back to 2007, we averaged about 6 employees per 1,000 residents, and basically flattened out beginning in the recession with cuts. 2010, we got down to about 4.75, and we pretty much maintained that for the entire history going back through. So we're currently at 125,000, and we're sitting at about 4.75 employees per 1,000 residents. I also wanted to mention some of the challenges we've had over the past 15 years with, I'll call it the erosion of local control. A couple examples of that are going to be the elimination of the redevelopment agency in 2012. Andy can speak to it better, but bottom line there is going to be, it meant that the city of Clovis does not have access to the $2 to $3 million that we would receive on an annual basis that we're able to reinvest in our Old Town and our economically disadvantaged neighborhoods. Over the past 10 years, 2014, 2016, Props 47 and 57 were approved at the state level, which made felonies, misdemeanors, made parole much easier, and made doing business in the city of Clovis much more difficult for our police department. And also, several pieces of legislation have led to the erosion of our local control of housing. It's not just us that are having financial challenges. If you take a look at the couple of articles in the paper just talking about the city of Fresno challenges, take a look at the state challenges. This is going to be from May 8th, the state looking at from $38 to $73 billion shortfall. Governor Newsom had a Friday May revise those numbers to 27 to 47 billion. But the bottom line is going to be that we've seen a significant slowdown in the revenues at the state level, and it is also being reflected at the city level. So while we're recommending a balanced budget, what I'm trying to put on the table is going to be that there's going to be actions that are going to need to be taken in this next 12 to 24 months for us to be able to continue to provide the services that our customers have become accustomed to. With that, if you don't have any questions of me, I'll turn it over to Andy, who's going to talk about what we've done over the past 6 to 8 months to reach out to the community to find out what their priorities are.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. So after our last budget process, we came back looking for a lot more input from the community on community priorities, because we started seeing cracks, as John's mentioned, in what we could spend our money on, what our priorities were. We wanted to hear from the community, and typically we don't have a whole lot of people at budget hearings, so we decided to go out to the community. We've done that in a variety of ways. Last August, we did a community priority survey, and I'll be going over some summaries of each of these. In September of 23, we did the National Community Survey, which is a long-standing survey in our community for the last decade we've been doing. And then in March, we opened up a budget input survey right after the 5-year forecast. And then since then, we've been doing weekly coffee with the chiefs. We've completed 8 of those. We have a few more going. And we've been doing community presentations on getting feedback on priorities for our budget process. We've done 5 of those and are continuing to do those. So the August 2023 Community Priority Summary, 61% of residents continue to believe Clovis is headed in the right direction. A strong finding for us, so it's some encouragement for all of us. Over two-thirds of the residents are extremely or very concerned about inflation and the cost of living and the cost of housing. I think all of us are experiencing that personally or in our businesses. And 90% of Clovis residents consider the following to be very important or extremely: protecting local drinking water, keeping public areas safe and clean, maintaining 911 emergency response, maintaining fire protection, retaining local small businesses and or jobs, and fiscal accountability. So those are things that the residents, and this was a scientifically sampled survey of residents. The American Community Survey was done as well, also a scientifically sampled survey, and another thing that was encouraging is that we shine compared to our benchmark cities. Those are cities across the West that are similar demographics to us, and our residents are very happy compared to other cities, and we want to keep it that way. But we did see community satisfaction fall, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, but numbers were bouncing back during that survey. Despite a great deal of positive growth in 2023, we had areas in which we could improve, which crime and housing were those two areas that came back. They're concerned about crime in our community and feel investing in the public safety is essential, and residents are increasingly concerned about the economy and housing. All right, so fast forward to this survey that we've been doing since March, and this is not scientifically sampled. It is asking people to fill out a survey either online, and I have a QR code for those in the audience. If they want to do it right now, they can. It won't live update those. I'm not that fancy. But these are the results. These were topics that we asked residents to rank on 1 to 5, as 1 being least important, 5 being most. And they came back as most of them being pretty close to most important, all across the board. Keeping public areas safe and clean, retaining local small businesses and jobs, maintaining streets and roads, maintaining local services, addressing homelessness. All those issues came back as things that people told us were really important. One unique aspect of this survey is that we were able to get long-form comments back. And we were able to summarize those with quite a bit of input. And here are some of those comments we got back from that survey. Safety is overwhelmingly the top priority. Focus on police presence, dealing with homelessness, and traffic safety. Another topic that reoccurred often was maintaining Clovis's character. They want us to maintain that character, and that includes cleanliness, aesthetics, and the community feel. One thing that came up a lot was they love Clovis's can-do attitude. I was encouraged by that. Financial stability was another big topic that came out in those comments. There's some concern about how we're going to pay for these essential services. They provided some suggestions: increased revenue, sales tax, or new revenue streams, user fees for parks and rec. There was some willingness to support a tax increase if it was used to fund essential services. And we also got a lot of feedback on cost-cutting measures, better management, eliminating waste, and prioritizing services. Another topic that both was on the survey comments as well as those comments we have when we were enjoying a conversation with someone at a Starbucks or what have you, about their concern about the growth in Clovis and the impact it's having on the city's character. So that was a big topic of discussion. One thing we're seeing is that Clovis is and will continue to be a destination of choice. It's a reason why people enjoy living here. But that encourages development and the fruition of the city's general plan, which under state law requires a city to plan for growth. Adding homes and businesses is also important to allow for children of Clovis to stay in Clovis as they become adults and seek homes and employment. And just to clarify, those bullets are my words, not the survey's words. So that is the feedback that we got through all that public input. Overall, it's about 1,600 surveys that were completed. About 500 of those are the ones we just went over, and that is still open for the next few weeks. There's a QR code right there. You can also join us for coffee with the chiefs. We'll be at Herndon and Clovis Avenue on Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. And I'm also willing to come out and do a presentation along with our chiefs on what's going on in Clovis and get your feedback, because we want to hear as we're trying to figure out how we should prioritize our investments in Clovis to maintain this great place. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jay.
Good evening. So tonight, the total city budget is $359 million as proposed. The top 3 categories of public safety, internal services, and public utilities represent 75% approximately of the proposed budget. Of the $359 million budget, it's balanced with current revenues and available reserves. 305 represents operating expenses, 54 in capital improvement projects. Of the general fund of $111 million, $85 million is discretionary, and 87% of the discretionary funding is dedicated to public safety alone. Sales and property taxes make up 82% of the total general fund discretionary revenues. So some budget highlights for this year. As John mentioned, expenses are growing faster than revenues. The general fund emergency reserve is maintained at 22.6. We have $1 million held aside in unreserved fund balance in case we don't hit something. And there's no funds available for investments in deferred maintenance or to add to the emergency reserve and limited fleet replacement charges. So of the $85 million in discretionary, on the left side we have the revenue sources of how that's made up, and on the right side is who is spending it. So on the left, property tax and sales tax, as John mentioned, is 82% of the total. On the right, police and fire represent 87% of the total. So in order to pay for public safety, we need all of the property taxes, all of the sales tax, and most of the hotel tax. The rest of the taxes that are left over pay for the remaining services, including parks, senior services, et cetera. So John presented in the 5-year forecast, so I wanted to show the proposed budget, which is on the far right, in a similar format to just identify where we're at for next year. So as proposed in this document for the general fund, we have $110 million of revenues, and we have 111 expenses, basically leaving a shortage of approximately $1 million using fund balance. In addition, a few of the transfers out that we do have scheduled total 1.5, so we are showing next year, right now as proposed, that we are using $2.3 million in fund balance to balance next year's budget for the general fund. So on this one here, we have citywide total expenditures of that $359 million. We have non-discretionary revenues of $273 million. In other words, we can't dictate where those are spent. And we have $85 million of discretionary revenues. What this also shows is that 75% of our revenues are non-discretionary in nature, and we can't spend it only in those specific categories. This is the same chart, but broken down for just the general fund. $111 million in expenditures, non-discretionary revenues of 26, and then the 85. What this allows you to do is to see which departments are using that discretionary revenue. So, of course, police and fire representing 87% of it, but you can also see general services, public utilities. You can see the parks, the senior center, the recreation programs are also consuming a smaller amount, but they are consuming discretionary revenues. So this is basically by revenue category for discretionary revenue. So we wanted to show on the far left the 23-24 adopted budget and then the proposed 24-25. And what you'll see on the far right is that some categories are what I would consider healthy. In the property tax, we've done a good as far as the amount of residential and commercial new additions, and with the lag of 18 to 24 months, those revenues are still growing, although they may level off in the future. But what you do see is the sales tax of $31 million last year. We're proposing 30. It's $1.1 less than where we were last year, and we're estimating 29. So that definitely tempers the revenues increases of the property tax to basically getting to a 4% increase, or approximately $3 million in next year's budget to cover the expenses. So in summary, we're monitoring economic conditions, and it's critical, and we may require a pivot, as Mr. Holt says, or spending cuts. The budget is a growth budget, but doesn't keep up. And then we are maintaining the general fund reserve at its current level. So going forward, we plan on continuing to May 20th and adopting the budget no later than June 30th.
Thank you, Jay.
Yeah.
Questions for Jay at this point?
Jay, can you go to, at the beginning, the chart that has, not the one next, after this one? This.
Yes.
So, the proposed budget, we're going to be short $2,370,000?
In total, between the operating deficit and the transfers out, yes. So we are basically starting the year as estimated at approximately 3.2 million. We will be eating in 2.3 of that to get to our $1 million unreserved fund balance contingency, if you will.
I should be better at this, but then, are you presenting a balanced budget to us, or are you presenting where we will be in the red at the end of this year? Because the 5-year forecast shows that this year we're still okay.
And we are. I'm not saying that it's balanced, but I'm saying that I'm using reserves, in this case, unreserved fund balance, to balance it this year. That is not uncommon in some of the other funds as well. The of note in this is that we can't continue at this pace going forward, or we will run into a deficit.
Okay. And then, I guess when it gets to general services, then I can ask the question about the reserves and the affordable housing, the 1 million set aside.
I can say for the $1 million set aside is for the affordable housing that was agreed upon and it was proposed in this year's budget for that purpose.
So it is coming out in this coming year?
Yes.
Correct. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, so I think.
Moving on?
Yep, I think so.
All right, so then we just have my budget here. So, 22-23s, I had actuals of approximately 3.5. My estimate this year is 3.9, and next year's proposed is a little over 4 million. That represents a status quo budget. I haven't asked for anything new, no positions, no new services. This is basically just the cost of employee benefits, salaries, and services, materials, supplies. So my budget is status quo as it gets. That being said, I have a couple projects that we are actively working on or hopefully coming to conclusion. One of them is the utility billing system. This also involves IT and public utilities, but our system is over 30 years old, and we're actually really excited to bring this system on in June. So it's going to basically enhance the user experience for those that embrace that, and the folks that don't want change, it can be the same as well. So we can continue to mail out monthly bills to them, but if they want to get online text, pay for your phone, those kind of enhancements, the system will allow for that. They'll be able to view it from any computer or mobile device, and then we'll actually get to automate some of our workflow processes that are very manual right now between finance and public utilities. So we're really excited to bring that system on. The second one, smaller, but it's necessary, is our accounting system. It's due for an upgrade. The last couple versions have had some bugs in them, and this one will bring some level of efficiency, but more than that, it will be supported from the vendor. So with that, that concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thanks, Jay. Questions for Jay on the finance department budget? Thank you so much. Did you guys draw straws in the order in which you get to go or something, so you can go home now? Is that how this works? Just kidding. Next up is the city council, city attorney, city manager, city clerk.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. I'll be taking part of the first part of the presentation, and Jesse will finish us up. So just some page numbers for your reference and when they're out in the budget book if you'd like to take a look. City council budget is a status quo budget. It's just nominal increases this year. Same for city attorney. In fact, we're estimating just a $900 increase on that one compared to this year. The city manager administration budget, also status quo, where it has some slight increases there for increased outreach, but nominal amounts. In the city clerk budget, we have an election coming this year that's been budgeted for as well. I'll turn it over to IT for Jesse to dive into those numbers.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. So those are our budget numbers for this year. The estimate to close includes the capital for the finance system upgrade and some of those other projects that we're still working towards and moving forward with. So get my button here. To recap with the IT division, we have 18 staff members. We're actually with 3 vacancies at the moment. so we're trying to fill those. We provide technical support to all city departments. I like to think of us as kind of your in-house consultants, per se, for technology services. We maintain 850 computers, the city's network, phone systems, the fiber optic system throughout the city, and any really technology-related device in the city. Cybersecurity-wise, we continue to, put out the fires on that front. We do our best to keep up with all of the updates that come through, to monitor for new vulnerabilities. There are constant attacks on our firewalls from pretty much everywhere in the world. We've locked our systems down through VPN and even isolating traffic to only the United States in some cases when it's gotten really, really bad. So we're doing that. We're working with a couple of different consultants on cybersecurity awareness programs, like training online and sending out spam campaigns that I'm sure everybody here really appreciates. But overall, on those campaigns, we've done a really good job as a city and a staff, where industry standard, if I remember correctly, is like 17% of click-through rates for people that would hit on an email. And, for the most part, the city has been down at staff in the 10 to 12% range. So we're a bit better off than our counterparts, I should say. Some projects for the upcoming year. We're going to continue as a city to look at cloud and subscription. We're going to do a big push to get all of our devices up to Windows 11. Windows 10 is, it's on the way out. We're exceeding kind of, and a lot of the upgrades and security patches and such are no longer available on that platform, depending on where you are in their revisions. So we're going to get everybody up to Windows 11. We are looking to do an assessment for the technology in this facility, in this room, to make sure that as we move forward, that whatever technology upgrades are needed in here, that we'll be looking at that this coming year. We have some fiber optic projects throughout here on the campus, and we're working with Planning Development Services engineering team on a couple of different other projects. We're doing an upgrade up at the Public Utilities landfill to improve some wireless connectivity. We're doing a pilot project for like e-signature of contracts and those kinds of things for the management team to start using and improve that workflow, and work with Andy here for our leased building to make sure that we have a home for at least the next few years until we get something here on the campus, and the standard replacement of our end-of-life devices and equipment. And that concludes my report.
Thanks, Jesse. Questions?
Jesse, AI has been at the forefront. Anything on that, or do we have an internal policy on AI, and where do you see AI and our use internally, if not any, yes, no, because it doesn't seem to fall at all.
Yeah, here. Actually, we submitted an AI policy to John not too long ago, and we, as a city and the staff, encouraging its use for things like drafting of documents or cleaning up language, making it clearer, doing some translations for, others in the community who are not maybe native English speakers and what have you. What we're not looking to do is wanting it to be used in any nefarious way against, trying to bypass our security filters or making sure in general that what we're putting out there, if we are using it, that we're coming forward and being transparent about, hey, we kind of adopted some of these things and made use of this technology as well.
We've already invested in it, or we have not, and we're only using the free AI stuff that's out there?
So, yeah, there's AI technology for standard free versions. Most of our, like, the 800-pound gorilla of the software industries are building AI into their platforms. So a lot of that is just becoming part of our everyday operation, just because that's what they're using now to build their systems and software.
And John, is that policy going to come to us prior to it, or is it already implemented and used? Or?
It was a policy adopted at the city manager level. I can get you a copy of it. Administrative policy.
It's an administrative policy.
And for full disclosure, we use it heavily to analyze comments on the surveys I talked about earlier. We had 230 surveys that probably would have taken weeks to really sift through well. So it gave us a running head start. It was really interesting to use it.
And at least for myself, can you send it to the council just to take a look at that policy? Thank you. Thank you, Jesse.
Jesse, a question. If we were ever to be subject to a ransom attack or some horrifying event, the budgeted amount for that, the cost of that recovery comes from where? Would come from where?
We, as a city, worked with our personnel department to have some cybersecurity risk insurance. And they, so when we signed up for it, they had a full, 10-page list of requirements and policies and things that we had to have in place to do that. And we're working through all of the necessary ones, and we're already touching on some of the ones that would be the nice-to-haves in terms of what they recommend. So the city does have cyber insurance in place already.
Okay, good. And then a second question, one of your projects was the assessment of the audiovisual technology in the chambers. Does that mean not investing in improvements, just assessing how good or bad it is, or is that maybe a capital improvement amount later?
There is a small one, not a small amount, and it's a significant amount, and I think we included $75,000 to make some needed improvements. A lot of the equipment in here has already been replaced, so it's just a matter of trying to get a better understanding of what the needs are, how we, if we wanted as a city to add more cameras, a better wiring compatibility for just different devices if need be, and kind of where we're going to be in the next 5 years.
Okay, thanks. Anything? Any other questions for IT? All right. Thanks, Jesse. Appreciate you.
We'll turn it over to Public Utilities. Scott Riddell.
You have 3 minutes.
I gave him 10 minutes.
Says 3. I'm very specific.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm done.
Nice. Yay. Whatever you wanted, you just got.
Questions.
Good job.
So hopefully I can bring a little positivity to the table here. So I want to start out again with reminding what Public Utilities Department is. You can read the mission and values, but I think something unique here is fitting in with our new goals that we just adopted, and it really is a focal point for us out in the corporation yard that we are investing in the core community infrastructure, and we maintain and strengthen with the competencies for sewer, water, streets. So all those things, I think that was really fitting for what we do. Out at the Public Utilities Department, we have separated into 3 divisions, and those divisions are multiple sections. Don't want to go line by line, but you can kind of see that there's a lot going on with a lot of sections providing all the maintenance that we do for the city. And each one, we have the Deputy Director, Paul Armendariz, Assistant Director, Glenn Easties, over the solid waste side, and Assistant Director, new Assistant Director, Nicholas Torstensen. And he's right now working over the administration and fleet and some of our technical resources. So pretty big things, pretty big deal. So the Public Utilities Department, I kind of want to put this slide in to kind of give you an idea of where our funding comes from, the amount of the budget. We have a $112 million budget, not including money we've set aside in some of the capital accounts for some large maintenance projects. but it kind of gives you an idea of where the funding we're bringing in, how much it is, and where it goes. I do want to go over how we are funded. Again, enterprise, we have water, wastewater, and community sanitation, which is solid waste. The gas tax funds our street maintenance and our street lighting, and we also receive general fund for street lighting. That'll be important later on in this presentation. The LMD and general fund, again, does parks. LMD is pretty good where we have approval of the collection, where we don't, zones 2 and 5, some things we've probably got to talk about in the future. And then, of course, the general fund, we only have so much funding to go for the general funded parks, which is most of the large parks in the city. Storm drain is another service we provide, so not as much this year, but the year before, we had a very large budget. We were doing a lot out there with all the rain and all the flooding. And that's a general fund component. Internal services, which is fleet maintenance, is billed out to all the departments, and some of it's general fund. The majority of that is enterprise and transit, and where we have large amounts of fleet. And then we also have a small a collection for property assessments in the community facilities districts. So this is, we find in the budget book, page 169, but it kind of shows you where our 22-23 actual came in, what we estimate this year, and then our budget for next year. And again, we always place a larger amount in our department request because we have to plan on potentially large expenditures for either water supply or things going wrong. So, but you can see it's a significant amount, and it continually grows. I put this in a different slide to kind of give you the amount of staff per section, so you can kind of relate that to the dollar values that we're using, and it just gives you an idea that we have a lot of staff doing a lot of work, and the enterprises is pretty good, but some of these other funds we'll get into as far as some issues that we need to look at in the future. So you would say, well, public utilities doesn't have funding challenges, but we do, because as I pointed out, we have general fund components, and we have some LMD components where they are not passing an election, and so it creates limitations on us. The first issue is streets maintenance and streets lighting. So the streets maintenance, we're adequate right now. We're doing pretty good. We get gas tax funding, and it's a pretty healthy for keeping those operations sustained at the level that we provide right now. You know, potholes and things like that really make a drain on resources, so we do as much as we can. We don't want to, we share that gas tax funding with planning and development services, so we don't want to eat it all up, because then there's nothing for some of the larger type of gas tax funded projects. Street lighting is allocated $1.5 million in general fund. The rest is made up from gas tax. And so what we're finding is PG&E, as probably all of you guys know, is raising their costs dramatically. And so for street lighting, you know, it's a $2.5 to $3 million budget. Most of that's to pay for lighting of the street lights, so to keep them on. It's becoming harder and harder, and us pleading for more general fund isn't going to happen. And so eventually we would eat up all the gas tax funding just to keep the street lights on. So we are working on strategies of how do we go on in the future and keep the street lights on. Turning them off is not an option. We have to pay PG&E regardless. We did talk about that. Well, can we turn them off at points in time and things like that? No, that's not how the rates work. So a couple of options would be light ownership. That requires an eminent domain process with PG&E. So that would be a big battle, but it is an option, and we are looking into that. The other thing is, going forward, not where we've been in the past, but going forward, we can look at landscape or lighting assessment districts and making those conditions to the new larger types of developments that are coming in. We missed it with Loma Vista. We missed it with Heritage Grove. We can't go back. But going forward, we really need to think about how we're going to pay for the streetlight system. Parks, you're very well aware of the general fund challenges there, just like with Gettysburg Park. You know, we're going to do everything we can, but we're very limited on resources and funding. And you know, in the LMD areas, Zone 2 and 5 are very problematic. Our maintenance is really reduced, significantly reduced, and we don't have funding to make it any better. So we're going to do the best we can with a limited amount, and we will continually go back. I think we're going to try another LMD Zone 5 Park Zone funding, which is way in the negative now, in a deficit condition. We'll try to go back probably in fall of 2025 and go try for another election. Hopefully we get some grassroots efforts going with us. And fleet, if you can imagine that everybody's facing going electric, that's the way everything's going, and it's not cheap, and there's no charging, so the transition to do all these things and the purchase of the vehicles themselves is crazy, not to mention purchases of vehicles that are gas-driven are getting outrageous. Our trucks are seeing 50 to 100% increases, and we're lucky when we can find them. So that's going to be a real challenge for the future. As Jay pointed out, the general fund is going to have a huge challenge with that. And even enterprise funds, though we're robust right now and stable, it potentially could be a challenge as far as, you know, if the ratepayers have to see an additional increase outside of our normal escalator. So now we get into the other side of our operations is the enterprise funding for the utilities. We are in the middle of a water rate study. We do anticipate large maintenance projects, some of them to fix some of the things that never worked when we built the water treatment plant, like pre-treatment. We're talking in the neighborhood of $10 to $30 million. And we're also looking at infrastructure replacement funds that we don't collect to replace our infrastructure, and our infrastructure is aging. So as we go through this, and of course Sigma reliability and sustainability, the advanced metering system that's going to link up with the finance, public utilities billing software. So we have all these things going on, and once we get through this water rate study, it's going to give us a good idea of if we're going to potentially, and I would say more than likely, have to recommend a Prop 218 next spring in 2025. And you'd go, well, the water fund's looking healthy. Yeah, but a lot of the fund balance is reserved for TCP treatment, is reserved for these other things. So it is healthy at this point, but the minute we put these large maintenance projects on the table, which are necessary, ozone, like I said, pre-treatment, these things that we need to get done, and then the infrastructure replacement and just keeping up with, you know, most people experience a CPI increase of whatever, 8 or 9. In this world, in the infrastructure world, we're going to be 30 to 50% increases. It's crazy the amount of cost increases going up. So to the right, you can see that when we did the refunding just recently, our water rate for Clovis is the second lowest in the valley. And the reason I'm saying that is that, you know, if it's a comparative to other cities in the valley, we have a lot of room for a modest increase if it's palatable to the council. Wastewater, the funding is stable, but we will have some future large maintenance projects. We're going to have to deal with the cannibal system not working. We produce too much sediment there, and other things with our CH Doom Hill, or now it's Jacobs. It was formerly CH Doom Hill. And solid waste, our funding is stable, but the mandates are crazy, and the organics mandates and everything that's coming down. So that, along with, we expect to expand the liner in about 5 to 6, 7 years for the landfill, so that we can put more trash in our landfill. and those are expensive projects. But at this point, the funding looks stable. So the big one we need to attack at this point, I think, is water. Goals and challenges, again, is to keep the street in a very good condition with limited funding. We do our best. Street lighting, like I said, is to establish long-term solutions for the increased costs. We are doing retrofitting to LED to save as much cost as we can. Parks, again, maintaining with limited funds. Fleet, doing the transition. Community sanitation, we're going to be letting out the new RFP for recycling and green waste or organic services. I anticipate that cost is going to go up, and it could go up substantially as we fit in all the requirements, all the new requirements to the RFP. Wastewater, again, that's pretty consistent. It's we have a lot of material being produced that we're going to have to deal with and figure out a way. And of course, water, getting back to the big things in water is future water supply, the SGMA, the water rate study, which is going to tell us, what do we have to do to afford these projects. We need to deal with TARPI, the rules coming up, and we're in the process of the AMI, which is Advanced Meter and Infrastructure, and of course, always dealing with the contamination. So, in summary, the budget, what we're recommending, and you can see the chart off to the right, is affecting all of our increases. So we're recommending to do those increases. However, still rebating the bond charge. We don't need to cover the developer portion of the bond charge at this point in time. And then we do have additional positions we are recommending for this budget. They are not general fund positions. These are all enterprise funded or some other funding that is available to use for these. And I don't know how this slide got slipped in there, but
an important budget year.
The biggest, let's end with a yeah. Next week is our barbecue, and we'd love to have you there. Next week, May 22nd. Yeah, at noon. Mm-hmm. I'll be reminding you again next Monday night with a proclamation. And with that, I'm open for questions.
Questions for Scott?
I just had one quick question. I was just, as we were talking about PG&E and the expenses and stuff, would a city-owned solar farm be beneficial to us for things like this if we were looking for future projects and
yeah, we are looking at that. We have been at the landfill. We do have some property. We could potentially locate one. The vehicle, the funding vehicle, or the wheeling of the power was based on a system called ResBack. That has been fully allocated at this point in time. So it's not that it would be financially feasible if we can offload the power to subsidize some of the plants or the general fund uses in those, and that's a great idea. But right now, that program is fully allocated, so we couldn't wheel that power. But we're looking into it. The big hurdle on that one is that you can put a solar farm out in the middle of nowhere, but PG&E is going to do a system impact study and say, oh, you're impacting all of our power lines because you're pushing a megawatt of power down these lines, and you're going to need to upgrade them all. And so, to fully go into this, where does it pencil out, it's a pretty big deal. We were working with Compass Energy on that, and it was not penciling in the right direction. But that doesn't mean that it can't be a viable way to get around some of the PG&E costs.
Thanks.
And I would say that if taking ownership of the streetlights allows us to go to from an LS1 rate to an LS2 rate, which is a different rate structure for PG&E, and so we would save on the energy cost. Of course, we would take over all maintenance obligations of the lights, and right now PG&E maintains most of our lights. So it's a good deal if they don't get hit. It's a bad deal if they get hit.
Vaughn?
Scott, are SB1 funds in the CIP budget or is in yours?
So SB 1 is going to the CIP budget.
CIP, okay, all right.
Easier to expend there.
All right. And then, you know, you talked about these light assessment districts, and then we're talking about CFDs and Melrose, all this stuff. Does that only help with the new projects with the new, or does it actually help the overall situation with things you're dealing with as well?
So what we would ultimately, as we start doing our strategies and looking at this, there could be a recommendation that the city go to a full Prop 218 election for a citywide landscape assessment or lighting assessment district.
Yeah.
And those are options. That would be helpful for historical choices we've made going forward. If we're not going to do something like that, we do need to start offloading some of these costs to areas. It gets a little bit more complicated because when you have a city-provided benefit as opposed to an area-provided benefit, you have to watch how you charge folks or how you would set up the LAD or the CFD. It's the same thing as the CFD. They're all the same. It's another way of developing revenue for costs.
And then for, is it next year or this coming year where the trash is coming up for rebidding, or is it still?
So we're working with the consultant right now, HF&H. We went through that award process. We haven't yet. They're getting their numbers together because it's going to be quite expensive to hire a consultant to do this. They will fast track the process as much as possible, or whoever we choose will fast track. Because what we believe we're going to experience is we want to get out there, we want to get an award done in 6 months to 9 months so that they can start ordering the equipment should they need to, so they can provide service to us, because what they're telling us is there's not enough equipment out there for somebody to come in and walk. So, somebody has to have all the trucks ready to pick up a whole new city service. And so that's going to be a big deal.
And then just to add to that, so those fleet requirements, are those going to be part of whoever we contract with as well? Or
yes,
they have to be ready and then
they will, and they're going to have to build that into their costs.
Oh.
That's why we don't know where the costs are going to go on these new contracts, and so we've got to be prepared for some, shocking numbers going, wow, because everybody's mandated the same.
And then that is in the budget for us to sort of be ready.
In the 5-year forecast, we've put in placeholder values,
okay,
and the solid waste funds look stable at this point.
Okay. And then in our maintenance, is there a requirement yet of cities to get all our equipment, like mowers to edgers, to go electric yet, or is that still?
It's really for heavy duty right now that we're having to comply with any truck or over 8,500 pounds. So we're trying to bring in, like we just had a test truck from, I think, Chevrolet, their new electronic truck. They're pretty cool. But bring those in so that we can delay these large purchases of the actual refuse vehicles like side loaders and stuff like that. The cost of a typical natural gas side loader is anywhere between $400,000 to $500,000. The cost for an electric one that doesn't run out of batteries in half of the day is probably pushing $1.5 million.
How much?
$1.5 million. Wow. And if you add in the incentives, you may get that down to $1.2 million. So that's what we're looking at. And at a certain point in time, we may be like transit. We may look at hydrogen. We may look at other things because it's a mandate that we are just going to have to face at some point.
And I think you alluded to that. That was my next question. Are there funding in the horizon from either feds or state that can help?
You know what, I think there was a great opportunity from the Air Board, and we went into we thought was just we were going to get a large grant, and I think with the governor's budget and other things, they've redirected the funding two other things. And so, is there funding? Yeah, it's limited, but if you save $300,000 off of a $1 million piece of equipment, it's still $300,000 more than what we had originally budgeted for in a renewal piece of equipment if we had stayed with natural gas or diesel or some other thing that runs on old-fashioned stuff.
And on that note, John, or is it Andy or is it Chad, where the grant collaboration, is that where, or are the departments doing it independently, or do we still have a...
Yeah, we have a grant committee that meets on a regular basis and from various departments, and that's been a big topic, talking about those funds relative to transit department, talking to public utilities about what they're doing and vice versa. I know they've been working closely even on charging facilities and planning all that out.
I should say we are working with PG&E. We purchased our first workhorse vehicle. It was electric for a toter delivery. The reason we jumped out on that one is so that we're now working with the PG&E incentive program so that we can start, what they'll do is they'll upgrade all your transformers up to the point of service into your facility, which is huge, so that we can start getting these places to charge the vehicles, let alone we're buying them. So yeah, we're looking at every incentive available and every pathway to get that. And there's a lot of funding out there, HVIP funding. There's a lot of funding, and it pays for something. But you know, it's a mower costs $60,000. We can get $30,000 in offsetting funding, but $30,000 for a mower, we could get a regular gas mower for $20,000. You know, so it still is more expensive than.
And my last question, I think it kind of goes into finance with the funds that are in enterprise funds. I thought we had a report that we didn't really change. I think we changed our investment, so that way potentially it's a higher yield than were before. And there was some positive reporting, I thought, Jay, that you did. And are we still doing that? Because some of these projects for sewer may be further out, so that way we can, that strategy may be able to increase, even if it's 1% or 2%.
Part of the strategy was to increase our portfolio to include corporate bonds as well, and we have started that. You will see that on the April and May bank reconciliations, I believe. First purchases, I believe, were in April. So you will start to see that where you're increasing your yield over what you can currently get with your current limitations, but that is, it's incremental in its effect of that investment to where maybe you could pick up a quarter or 0.5% potentially, theoretically. You're not talking about huge gains unless the market at that time is just opportunity.
You'll see an increase in the 5-year forecast from where we were before. So yeah, we're getting better interest, and so like our TCP money that sits aside at the $15 million is earning at least the portion that we are investing is earning much better than it used to.
Yeah, the market has come back to where our reinvestment now is somewhere in that 4.5%. And when not too long ago, a couple of years ago, you know, we were down at that 0.5%, maybe 3/4 total. So the market, you know, almost overnight has gone up considerably, affecting mortgages and everything else, but including our rate of return in a positive way. So,
and is there a way in which that you can highlight this sort of investment strategy, if it's been good or not? It may not be this first quarter, but somewhere along the line, just so that we can really look at it and go, you know, council, when you approved this and we did this, this is what, it's been positive.
Absolutely. Proactively, we could benchmark each of those at investment time to track what it is that we picked up by going for that investment choice versus a more secure one. Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be very helpful. Thank you. That's on it.
Anybody else? Just a couple of quick questions, Scott. In the 5-year forecast, do you imagine a future without Measure C and what impact that would have? Because that would occur in the 5-year forecast.
So that will have a critical effect on the large street rehabilitation projects that we do. We use that funding for the flexible and the other Measure Cs. in public utilities, we get some reimbursement for signs and striping and some other generalized Measure C, but it's not our mainstay. Again, we use most of the gas tax funding because it's more dependable. It's a forever thing. We can't bring in staff and resources based upon Measure C.
So those dollars are in planning's budget?
Yeah, they're being used to the capital program.
Okay. And I think my other comment, Fong mentioned, I feel like maybe an opportunity in the next 5 years is to simplify the way we assess for landscaping and lighting and parks, if it's a CFD citywide, because I think it's a lost, it's a nuanced argument when someone calls about Gettysburg Park, and the answer that it's a general fund park is pretty dissatisfying. So what? So I feel like that might be a longer range opportunity that we could look at across the city in some fashion. To your point about expenses exceed revenues, because safe cities are clean and orderly and neat, and that is a huge crime fighting factor. So it's all related to public safety in some ways. And we've also talked about neighborhoods like mine that are older. I don't pay anything for my neighborhood park, which is weird. So how could you spread that out a little bit across the city? Because we all benefit from nice parks, whether they're in my neighborhood or they're at Clovis and Alluvial or whatever. So I do think that's an opportunity, because I think the zone thing and the you failed 3 times and the cost of that is just crazy making. So I would like to put that on the table for an opportunity for the city to look at, because there's got to be an easier way. The other question I wanted to ask about is trail maintenance. So one of the constant refrains is the maintenance of our trail, trees die, et cetera, et cetera. So attention to that would be in your budget under the parks category. So probably not more money to do that, but that's another way we built this great trail system. I think somebody mentioned it earlier, they're going to need work just like everything else. Yeah. So I want to make sure we have a way to pay for that. We do slurry projects. We're trying to address the preventive maintenance that we can. Again, but there's a lot of trail, there's a lot of upkeep, there's a lot of landscape, and unfortunately, landscape dies. But those are general fund trails? Most of the trails are general fund. So that's a perfect example. So how do we spread it across for an additional revenue source? Because I think we're going to run out of general fund options here shortly. So anyway, yeah. I would like to put on the table for public utilities and staff going forward is how do we look at a simplified, citywide way to fund parks and landscaping and lighting and trails. Everyone benefits, whether I use them or not. It makes our community better and cleaner and safer and healthier. And it seems like a worthwhile investment to think about what that strategy would be like. So just want to put that on the table. All right. I believe that concludes. You said you were done like 20 minutes ago, so you actually kind of didn't even tell the truth. Just kidding. All right. Thank you, Scott. Good job. Good job. Oh, Renee's got her phone out. She must have a timer going. Uh-oh.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Council. Tonight, I will be presenting Planning and Development Services Operation and Maintenance Budget, as well as the Community Investment Program budget. So as a reminder, PDS is divided operationally into 3 divisions: the Planning Division, Building Division, and Engineering Division. We currently have 65 approved positions, that's full-time, and 3 extra help. Planning and Development Services is an enterprise fund, meaning we collect fees for the services we do provide. Here I'm demonstrating what our actual expenses were in 2022-23, what our estimate to close is for this current fiscal year at about $13.7 million, and then our proposed budget next year, 24-25, at about $15 million. The $1.3 million increase is predominantly due to salaries, benefits, and professional services. The salary and benefits are basically positions we did not fill this year that we're carrying over to next year and we're anticipating filling next year. I do have one new FTE that I am requesting in the budget. That is a deputy director as a succession planning position. As you've heard previously to my presentation, PDS does receive approximately $350,000 in general fund support. It goes towards activities where we don't charge a fee for the service we provide. And here's a list of the typical types of services that are not tied to a revenue source. Diving into each of the divisions, the building division has a $3 million budget. There are $3 million of our $15 million overall budget for PDS. Their slight increase is really just due to salaries and benefits. Again, what the building division offers is they process plans, they issue permits, they do commercial plan checks, residential plan checks, they conduct inspections to ensure our built community is safe. Some of the building highlights: building has 13 staff members. There is one vacant senior building inspector that we're looking at potentially filling next year. Some highlights on current activities. This year, we have issued to date over 500 residential dwelling permits. We have issued in total, including the 500, over 3,000 building permits. We've done more than 12,000 inspection stops, and we have approximately 320 plans currently in the review process. Projects that will carry from this year to next year in the building division is the conversion to digital processing of plans and permits and real-time solar permits. New projects for next year will be our front counter cashiering and then compliance with AB 1332, the pre-approved ADU plans. I like to include this slide. It's really just a snapshot of the historical building activity. Basically, on the left-hand side, it's the total building permits issued and finalized. On the right-hand side, it is predominantly, actually, it just focuses on the residential permits. So in general, basically on the left side, so the total building permits issued, when you look at the average of the last 3 years, it's approximately 3,700 permits. Or I'm sorry, finalized is 3,700 permits, issued is approximately 45, and then for the residential specifically, we have finalized over the last 3 years an average of 570, and we've issued 672. You oftentimes hear us talk about our 30-year average, which is over 800 residential building permits annually. This year, because of the slowdown, we're looking at around 550, and we're on target to hit that. The next division is my planning division. So they have a $4.3 million proposed budget for next year. That's approximately $460,000 above our current estimate to close. Again, the increase is due to salaries and benefits and consulting expenses. Planning is responsible for implementing the general plan, specific plan, master plans. They also process a variety of entitlement applications. They perform all types of environmental reviews. They provide information to the community and implement state housing law. Some of the highlights for planning: there are 10 staff members in planning. We currently have 2 vacancies that we'll be considering filling this next year. They're included in our budget. Some of the applications or the activities that we've conducted this year in 23-24 are a variety of entitlements, from GPAs to track maps, to site plans, rezones, CUPs, and a variety of other applications. Ongoing projects that will carry from this year into next year include the housing element. I'd be really happy if it was done before the start of next year, but we are anticipating that will roll over. And what will definitely roll over is the implementation of the housing element. We have a handful of very large master development plans and specific plans that we're working on up in the Heritage Grove and north of Shepherd area. And then we're also working on multifamily objective standards updating. Next year, we anticipate the kickoff of our general plan update in our infill rezoning program. So this is just an example of a few of the projects. I think these were pretty cool projects, so we included them as what's kind of going through planning and development services. So at the top, you have the Herndon Medical Office. It's south of Herndon, just east of Willow. And then the IQ Center, it's currently under construction. It's in our RT Park. So my next section, our division, is the engineering division. Engineering is divided into 4 sections. We've got community investment, engineering administration, development review, and construction management. Engineering's budget is $7.6 million. That's what we're proposing for next year. It's approximately $700,000 above our estimate to close. And again, the increase is due to salaries, benefits, and professional services. Engineering has a variety of tasks that they are responsible for, and it ranges from plan checking and approving proposed development projects, coordinating the orderly construction of both public and private projects, implementing the development impact fee program and the reimbursement program. We've got active transportation management. We have a list of staff that go after grant funds for our street projects and our open space. We design public infrastructure repair and improvement projects. We provide construction, inspection services, and we issue encroachment permits. So some of the highlights for the engineering division, there's 34 staff members. There's 3 vacancies. Those vacancies we'll be looking at potentially filling this next year. In 23-24, to date, we have approved over 30 plans, engineering civil plans. We have also issued over 900 encroachment permits. Ongoing projects that will carry from this year into next fiscal year include the annual update to the development impact fees, the annual budget for the Black Horse Assessment District, assuming that that district passes and we don't have any opposition, and then the ongoing evaluation of the city's sewer and water master plans. New projects anticipated in 24-25 include a specific evaluation and update of the city's sewer master plan cost and the conversion to digital processing of plans. Now jumping into the community investment program. So the community investment program is a major portion of the overall budget that's being presented tonight. As you can see here, it's just under $54 million. The engineering division is responsible for preparing this budget and delivering it for the most part. We work very closely with all the departments that have projects in here to budget for them and then design and carry those projects forward through construction. So as you can see, the $54 million budget includes 44 proposed activities for this next year, covering the range of accounts on the left-hand side, which is government facilities, sewer, parks, streets, water, refuse, and community development. At the bottom of this table, we have the proposed revenue sources that balance this budget. So it includes the sewer and water enterprise funds, grants and contributions, development fees, and fund balance. So just diving a little bit deeper into the funding for the community investment program, we've got approximately $20 million in a variety of grant funds that are listed up there, most of which is coming from the regional Measure C. So, Mayor, as you indicated, if we were to lose Measure C, that would be a big impact beyond just the pass-through. We have regional projects that get quite a bit of money. We also have the gas sales tax and SB1 at approximately $3.7 million. So as Scott indicated, if there was to be any more shifting of gas tax, that would take away from the projects that we're able to complete in the engineering division. And then Measure C pass-through has approximately $4.3 million that covers those categories there. So if we were to lose Measure C, it would be an additional $4.3 million. So ongoing projects that we're currently working on in the community investment program include some Measure C projects. You've got the Shaw Avenue widening, DeWolf to McCall, Herndon Avenue widening, Temperance to DeWolf. We'll also be participating in the technical committee for the renewal of Measure C. We also work every year on the active transportation plan, not only the update but the implementation, and then we have the SB1 projects. They're listed that we'll be working on, that are currently we're working on that will roll potentially into next year. We also have the Loma Vista Village Green. We should be complete with that project this summer in July, and then Fire Station 2. So here's just a few snapshots of some of the projects. We're pretty proud of these projects, so we like to show you what's been going on out there. We've got Fire Station 2, the rebuild. It will also be complete here this summer, the Shaw Avenue widening. This would be the segment between Leonard and McCall, and the Village Green out in Loma Vista. So noteworthy projects for next fiscal year in 24-25 include a variety of street reconstruction projects as listed there. We also have the bridge replacement at Leonard Avenue in the Enterprise Canal. We have the Shepherd signal synchronization that will be between Willow and DeWolf, the annual Cape and Slurry seal, and our ADA ramp upgrades. So the last section I want to talk about is our administrative services section. This group of staff is incorporated within the 3 divisions in planning and development services. They include technical and administrative staff that really provide support to everyone in our department as well as other departments at times. So administrative services, they're really supporting subject matter experts, but they provide a lot of GIS. They help us with our InterGov and just coordinating the business process management. So with that, I always like to conclude with the people that make everything happen in PDS, and that's the staff. They're dedicated, they're critical thinkers, they have a can-do attitude. There isn't a problem that comes across that we don't spend a lot of time really trying to solve and really push forward the city's vision. So with that, that concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
And they do fabulous work with young kids who want to learn how to be planners.
They do.
Thanks, Renee. Well, I'll just call on you first, Ron.
Hey, Renee, SP1, can you remind us again how it's allocated? Is it by population? Is it by, you submit projects up to the state and you get it? How
gas tax. So
I know it's the gas tax, but
yeah.
then how do we get that 3.7 million? Is it just population and we do with it, or do we have to submit projects up and competitive?
If I recall, it's
I'm looking back, and they're telling me it's an allocation, I think, based on population.
Yeah, based on population and maybe a few other factors that go into that.
So potentially there are cities sitting on monies not doing much with it, potentially, just like Measure C, where we've allocated to certain cities, and because they have no infrastructure, they have no plans, they may not be doing so. And there's no way to get those because it's allocated by...
Right. I don't think we could capture unspent funds from other city. We get our allocation, and then we bring back to council a report listing the projects and how we're going to spend those funds.
Okay. And since your department is different in that you are more like a business,
mm-hmm.
Okay. What happens if your projection is lower, but then you have, you're wanting staff and all that? What happens there? Because do we absorb it? Do you? I'm trying to understand how you operate if you are short of not, because you're more like a business. Here, we know what kind of funds we're going to get. Because if next year there's just a downturn,
mm-hmm.
if there is. So I just want to understand how all that works. Is that where we can put emergency funds in, or is it it's very difficult for your staff at that time?
Sure. So in 2012, PDS became an enterprise fund. At that point, the services that we provide, we were charging a fee. We do have a working capital budget. Those are unspent dollars that have been collected for services that could be provided, in the future. So we have a decent working capital. We also have an emergency reserve that council has set that we would have at least 20% of our operating budget set aside. So if we ran into a situation where building permits just completely dropped off and we weren't able to sustain enough revenues to support our expenditures, we could tap into those funds. We put together in PDS a lot of contingencies on if we start to see this downturn, where can we start to cut that won't get at, staffing levels, but they're more discretionary items of work that we could take out of our budget to maintain our ability to continue to operate. We also have the opportunity within engineering to shift around, like if development slowed down, could we shift some of the DRU staff, development review staff, mm-hmm. over to the capital where there is a revenue source that then, could sustain those positions. So we've got some ability to make some adjustments.
Well, thank you.
Questions? I have just a quick question. I haven't heard for a number of years any status on the CHSU development plans out in the RT park. And what made me think of it is you were talking about IQ moving to the RT park, which I assume means they're vacating the community medical center property, so that's interesting. I don't know, I might be wrong, but it makes me think that that might be free up more medical. They're not doing that?
I think they're in their own spot. They're just north of the CHSU campus.
But right now they are on the Clovis campus, right? IQ? Yes, they are. They're my doctor. Yes, they are. Anyway, it's interesting. So that's interesting about the medical center. Good for them. That's great. But it makes me wonder about the RT park in general. Because I think we've talked about over the years, I feel like it needs a refresh as a project. So we talked a few years ago, I had a suggestion that maybe the name isn't even right, because it's really about a medical park now. It's research, technology, and medical something. I'm not sure. But I'd like to see if there's an opportunity to add in sort of the project imagination list over time, is a re-looking at the RT park, and then specifically what happened to all of that Granville discussion about housing and this and that and new campuses and all of that. And so that's not on your list of major projects, but that would be a major project if it was a thing. So is it a thing?
So you'll be surprised.
I am always surprised at you, Renee. No, I'm just kidding. In a good way. In a good way.
So we will have an item going next month to Planning Commission. That group is moving forward. We do have the outreach that we needed to do for the cleanup with the zoning. So we'll be taking that forward, and then also the development standards for the student and faculty housing. Once that goes to Planning Commission, then we'll return to the council.
So thank you, and I would ask that we think broadly beyond that about reframing the RT park, if that's the right thing to do. If we're trying to create a medical neighborhood in that general vicinity, and we haven't been as successful attracting purely research and technology companies, which is fine, but we probably could attract some medical devices, medical equipment, medical incubators, medical whatever. So maybe just a reframe on the RT park, kind of in its next 20 years, just a thought. And then just a request. We mentioned Measure C a lot, and I think we've talked about this before, but if you could periodically give us kind of an audit of our own expenditures of Measure C funds, because to Vong's point, we know cities don't spend Measure C funds, and we know they don't provide audits on Measure C funds. So if there's a way, it's more of a tactical question, not related to the budget, but it made me think about that. If you could just periodically, twice a year, give us a status of where we are on our own Measure C projects, as you did with the Herndon temperance question I asked you a few months ago. That would be really helpful.
Sure, that's not a problem.
Yeah, so anyway, thanks. All right, thank you. Oh, I crossed you off already, Chad. That's so sad.
I have a way of clearing the room.
I thought you were done. I crossed you off already. I thought you already did this. All right,
starting.
Next up, Economic Development, Housing, and Communications Department.
That's right. So for the benefit of those in the room who don't know me, my name is Chad McCollum. I'm the Director of the Economic Development, Housing, and Communications Department, and I'll be touching on each of the divisions listed in the title that you see on the screen right now. This is my team, and I could not do my job without them. Want to thank those that have stuck around so patiently tonight, including Claudia. I think Sean Miller just stepped out. And again, they do a fantastic job, and I'll be touching on each of the divisions that they lead and the priorities that we have set for the upcoming year. You've seen a budget very similar, at least a chart very similar to this, with each of the departments that are presented. You've got the actual, the estimate to close, and the proposed budget for both economic development and communications, and then housing and community development. It's a pretty standard status quo budget. There are no additional bodies. The additional costs or the amount between the 23-24 and 24-25 do have to do with salaries and employment benefits, and then some professional services as well. I'm going to go through economic development first, and it's really broken down on our efforts for the upcoming year into three portions, which I'll touch on. The first is probably the most important. It's business growth and retention. we have a number one priority to support our existing businesses here in Clovis. I believe that our businesses are the backbone of our community. They not only support us with their tax dollars, they provide employment, but they also provide culture and a place for us to congregate as families and friends. As the department, we encourage entrepreneurship as well. We do that through the Clovis Culinary Center and the Made in Clovis program, where we support businesses that are creating things locally. We have a Shop Local program that we do each year, where we provide restaurant rewards. And we've also kicked off a tap trail. You'll see in front of you some swag that I've placed on your dais there for you to take with you. Basically, what we do is we provide a passport that looks just like a passport that you'd show customs when you're returning to the country. You go to each of the breweries, you get a stamp, and then you get yourself a mug with the logo of the tap trail on it. What that does is it supports our local entrepreneurs who are trying to, eke it out. Some of them have worked in their garage for years. Now they're trying to make a go of it out there, and it's really exciting, and it's fun to see them succeed. We have lots of local partnerships with business organizations here in town, the Clovis Chamber, Boot, SBDC, Fresno County EDC, just to name a few. We could not be as successful as we are in the economic development world without them. As you saw on our org chart, we're a very small group, so we meet with them constantly to try to amplify our messaging and help them with their efforts. Along with business retention, we're also trying to attract business to the city of Clovis. We want to encourage new commercial and retail development. We assist these developers and folks that are looking to relocate to Clovis with site selection, land use questions, work very closely with planning and development services as they work with these businesses as well. We focus on life science job creation. Mayor, you mentioned the R&T Park. We are continuing to focus on medical technology, pharmaceutical. We believe that there is a future in the RT Park for these types of businesses. There is a bio conference taking place in San Diego in June that I'll be at. I'm setting up appointments right now to meet with businesses that are looking to relocate, and we're hoping for a home run, if not a home run, maybe a base hit, and see if we can expose them to the city of Clovis and let them know what they're missing by not being here. We do look at the growth areas of Loma Vista and Heritage Grove. You've heard a lot about that tonight. We also aren't forgetting our Shaw Avenue corridor. We have a study on the retail and commercial developments there. We've wrapped up phase 2. We're now looking to implement some of those findings by working with planning and development services, trying to pick out some case studies, and you'll be hearing about that in the weeks and months to come. I mentioned the trade show coming up in June. We also have broker meetups by meeting with local brokers, local developers in events that we host. We're able to get people in a room, and that's where some of the magic happens. Tourism is incredibly important. One of the efforts that Sean Miller and I have been working on with the Clovis Chamber is to encourage our visitors to stay one more day in Clovis. What that does is it benefits our transit occupancy tax, gasoline purchases, helps our local businesses, restaurants, retail, and that all comes together when people stay, either when they come to vacation and experience our national parks, or they're coming for the rodeo. Staying one more day is going to be something you'll hear about a lot in this upcoming year. We promote market special events like the rodeo. We're redesigning and we'll be launching this year an updated visitclovis.com. That's our tourism site. It has to do with a lot of reasons, including some ADA requirements that we need to comply with. We also have some long-term goals with our overall websites, so I'll speak about that in a moment. We do partner with the Tourism Committee, Hotel Association, CUSD, for lots of events, including the CIF tournament, which is taking place later this month. And we really want to maximize the Tarpey Depot opportunity. It's a place that we send people to. Our employee, Pam Nelson, does a great job there, making people feel comfortable answering their questions when they go to visit Tarpey Depot and learn a little bit more about our community. I'll mention, again, Claudia. She does such a great job with our housing and community development. Thanks for sticking around, Claudia, and for your hard work every day. Claudia helps manage the affordable housing programs. We brought before you several weeks ago the Housing Trust Fund, which was established, and we're also helping planning and development services and the housing element, the development of that housing element, and we'll be responsible for managing quite a few programs that land in there. We work every day to support our affordable housing developers. We support our residents who seek assistance in housing rehabilitation for both health and safety, and then also down payment assistance programs as well. Claudia also administers the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG program. The dollar amount that you saw in the budget does not include that amount. That was really the administration, and this and Cal Homes and other grant programs will be funds that are administered through her division. So here's our communications program. We are going to be doing, in conjunction with the IT department, a large website redesign of both cityofclovis.com, Visit Clovis, and all of the other websites that the city maintains. There are more than a dozen, believe it or not. This is going to be a very large lift, very important as well, as we want to comply with ADA, make sure that outreach to our community is effective, and we comply with all the regulations that are coming down the pipeline. We also maintain more than 20 social media accounts from all different departments. And of course, social media is not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. So when you post something, that's when the real work begins. You're answering questions and responding to comments as much as possible. That community outreach is very important. We're looking to promote programs and services through our social media, seek feedback, market events. We also work closely with our local media. They help amplify our message. They're very important to our mission as well. And then we also document history. You saw me snapping a photo of the group today as they got their proclamation. That will not just be sent out to the group, posted to our social media, but put into an archive where we can rely upon that and look back on it in the years to come. So what's on the horizon? As our city continues to grow, there's going to be pressures put on our department. We don't know what the economy is going to be bringing. Of course, that impacts not just the general fund, but our businesses, which strive every day to employ people and provide services. So there'll be a balance that happens, whether it be seeking attraction in new businesses or retaining businesses. Sometimes when the economy is really booming, the attraction is where you focus on. When businesses are not looking to expand, they're just trying to survive, you focus a little bit more on the retention. So we'll be looking at that balance and trying to serve both causes. Housing, we're going to be managing additional programs as the state mandates. We also have increased regulation that will be coming our way. We really don't need to get into all of it because it's a whole nother presentation. But as that takes place, we'll be managing it, making sure that we're checking all the boxes and complying with everything that we need to do. And then communications, residents really are seeking more information online. They're walking into lobbies less, they're emailing and calling less, they're going online for their services. So our departments are really expanding their digital footprint. That is putting a strain on our social media and communications division. At some point, we'll need to reassess how we service everyone, even to a greater extent. We're creating lots of videos, they take time, and with a department or division really of two, they're working really hard, and I'm proud of them. Taylor Danielson is not here tonight. She's at a conference where she's learning some of the best practices on communications. So that is my presentation tonight, and I am ready for any questions.
Okay. Let me see. First, just three thoughts. So for economic development, you know, you're looking at jobs, but what I would want, and I don't know if the council will support, is you start talking to business to see if there are any fluff ordinances that just needs to be taken away. You know, why are we requiring this? Why is that? Let's get rid of some of the governmental roadblocks that is just taken away from business. And I think since, you know, it's harder to attract and we got the EDC to do stuff, then we can really spend time on that and go, well, let's make us the most business-friendly regulatory wise. And so I think that would be awesome for our city. For communication, we sit around and we get ranked best place to live, all that. Let's be intentional and just go, what are the rankings? What are those ranking organizations? And let's apply like crazy. So that we can put that on our banners. We can just, rave about that. Because those are pretty easy after you do one. And just keep going, hey, we got the best parks in the valley. And we don't care who the ranking is. It's just that they're promoting us now. Because I think these ones that I just saw recently, I don't think we're doing much, right? It's not like we apply. They look around. But there are things in which we can just be actively looking for. And then for housing, can we put homeless with housing? Just so that it disturbs me a lot when housing funds homeless funds comes to this area, we're always left out. Why does it go to Fresno only? We have the issues too. So how do we make it where now when we are at the table, yeah, you got to share. It goes to the county. I forgot what their program was, just ready to home or then we had nothing from that as well. And yet we're the second largest. So how do we become so active and forward in that? So that way, I know that Claudia spends a lot of time with the Fresno Madera Continuum of Care. So we're there. I think now we got to make it where, hey, let's take care of that. Let's bring it here. So that way when they ask us, it's just, well, I don't know, we don't have anything. We just call PD, and we try to help them as much as we can. No, we have this. Now we have funds. Now we can do something to actually help in it. So those are my 3 thoughts. Other than that, everything else.
Thank you. Just on the homeless front, we share your frustration. We seek the funds. We don't get the funds. So we'll continue to fight for that.
Thanks, Vaughn. Questions for anyone else? We're kind of on a roll. A couple for me, just to Vaughn's recognition point. I've had my eye on, there's a ranking for healthiest cities in the state. We may not qualify if we're not quite big enough, but we're getting close. And with all the trails we have and all the parks we have and all the open space we have, I think that's an interesting opportunity I think that we could take a peek at. You had 2 things on there. One, I think the Clovis Culinary Center has been an incredible success. So whatever investment, again, I don't know, we're not adding any money to that, but I think that's an opportunity in the future to invest in more, expand that. Maybe we have a brewery version of the Clovis Culinary Center or a Clovis brewery, I made that up, I don't know. But I mean, maybe there's spin-offs that we could support because we've seen what a difference it's made in individual lives and in creating a really interesting small business economy in Clovis. And then I continue to advocate for incubators. So I think in the R&T park, when you rename it the RT&M park or whatever we call it, but I think a medical incubator is an interesting idea. So we had some way to invite people, incentivize them at your conference in San Diego to say we have this startup space or whatever that would be. I think that would pay dividends in the next decade or so. So I would just add those as you imagine what those things are like. And my only comment on tourism is I think tourism is an important way to communicate our heritage. So having a heritage tour, I know there used to be a walking tour of Old Town flyer. I'm sure there still is one, but I bet it might be kind of out of date. And who uses a brochure anymore? They want it on their phone. I get that, but I just don't forget the opportunity to communicate our history through tourism, because people want to come and walk around a cool old town and see the first this and the first that. I think we have all those.
So sneak peek, not to interrupt you, I apologize for that.
Sneak peek, I love sneak peeks.
We are working on an app that will support a walking tour, and it's very interactive, and again, it's part of our One More Day in Clovis.
Very nice. I think it's a song, One More Day, from Les Mis. Want me to sing it for you? No,
please.
You don't. No, thank you. All right, thanks, Chad. Appreciate it. And last but not least, Shauna. Save the best for last. There you go. General services.
All right. Well, good evening. General services. I'm going to give you an overview on this slide, and then the next 4 slides go into what's on these slides a little bit more in detail. What I'm mostly going to be looking at is the 23-24 estimate to close compared to the 24-25 budgeted amount. Some personnel in that line item, pretty flat, not a lot of changes, primarily just regular operational increases. You can see there's a pretty large increase in employee benefits. We'll get into that in a minute. It's about $5 million. And as you can tell from those dollar figures, that's for citywide employee benefits. It includes health insurance, our workers' comp, and our PERS costs. Next, property and liability insurance, another big jump. We'll get into details in just a moment. Facilities maintenance, pretty flat. That is project-based, and so it'll go up and down depending upon projects. Department support actually went down because there's $1.2 million in solar panels being put on at Landmark Square and Fire Station 6. And that project is in the works right now with the CEC loan, so it's not in the budget for next year. Senior services, not a lot of increase there either. Same with recreation, and it actually kind of goes down when you take into account increases in costs and expenses. And then transit is up a little bit, primarily for some capital purchases. So now we'll go into those in a little bit more depth. We're going to start with personnel and risk management. We do have 3 new police officer positions in the budget for 24-25, and that's a total of 12 additional positions throughout the city. Those I bring up because that does impact the cost of our benefits when we add more positions. Health insurance costs are budgeted to increase about $1.3 million. There's, besides the additional employees, there's also just annual increased costs that we see every year. We're also providing more extra help employees with insurance. Anybody who works 30 hours or more a year in a one-year look back, 30 hours or more a week, excuse me, in a one-year look back is now eligible for health insurance. Retirement contributions, this is our PERS contributions, increased $2.8 million to about 14.3% increase. That, of course, is unfunded liability that we're going to be paying on for at least another 10 or so years, and additional employees as well. Liability and property cost increases. This is an issue across the state. Everybody is seeing liability insurance, property insurance skyrocket. People are getting canceled. They can't get insurance. You know, we're part of a pool, but we've also seen some pretty large payouts in liability and property insurance, both in our own and throughout the risk management pool. The next section is facilities maintenance and department support. And these are the folks that maintain all the buildings and also take care of some of our larger contracts and purchasing. It's pretty much a flat budget because a lot of the items that we would have repaired have been deferred. So some of the things that we're not fixing this year is the courtyard fleet building roof replacement. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars. Fire headquarters and police and fire headquarters, I believe this is actually in the police section, needs some repairs to their showers. Wood flooring needs to be replaced with concrete MPD. City Hall and Council Chamber bathroom remodels. We keep pushing those off. None of those are in the budget for this year. Facility maintenance projects that are in the budget is to put some new mini split HVAC systems in a couple of the fire station IT rooms, replace some carpet in fire stations 1 and 5. I mean, they live there, so we have to make sure it's, you know, a nice place. PG&E power upgrade to City Hall. This is required if we ever want to expand this campus, because right now we're out of additional power resources here. There's a little bit of remaining carpet and flooring that hasn't been done in PD after the flood that we had. And then a drain line for animal control Villa Yard. It keeps getting clogged from when they're hosing down the pens. As everybody has already talked about, electricity costs in the department support budget, we've estimated 8%, but PG&E rate hikes have really impacted the budgets everywhere in the city, and all of the, well, the majority of the electricity bills run through department support. There are also some new buildings that Department of Support and Facilities Maintenance are going to be assisting with. Fire Station 6 recently opened. Fire Station 2 should open soon, and then, of course, the Senior Center and Transit Hubs. Next, Senior Center. We successfully opened the new building on 3rd Street. We have about 600 people visit the Senior Center each weekday. Now, at the old center, it was about 150, so it's a really big jump. We restarted the FMAAA lunch program, and we have about 100 people coming for lunch every day. We had 160 people play bingo the other day, and it's for tchotchkes. It's not even for money. It's for, you know, whatever people have laying around. Unfortunately, we're victims of our own success, and the building is already out of room. But we have some really good news because we're going to come back next month with a proposal to, instead of putting personnel in the former tenant space, expanding into that space. And I'm really pleased to tell you that we have been informed that we are going to be receiving a $501,000 donation. And that will help fund some of that space. So we'll bring those folks also to council and thank them for their very large donation. Also this year, we're getting a $48,800 CDBG grant that'll help for additional programming and especially some evening programs. Staffing is critical. So back in 08-09, the General Services, Community Services Division had 3 supervisors. We had a transit supervisor, a senior center supervisor, and a recreation supervisor. And with the budget crisis, we were going to close the senior center. We did close the rec center, and we had some large donations from a couple people that kept the senior center open. But what we did is we eliminated the senior center supervisor position. And that person used to report to the general services manager. Well, now the general services manager is the deputy general services director, but still has senior center transit and rec under it. Well, without a supervisor, all of the employees at the senior center, now mind you, there's only 4 full-time employees at the senior center, but there are a lot of part-timers and instructors. They all report directly to the deputy general services director. Now, you know who she is. That's Amy. Amy has a lot of responsibilities in the community and in transit, statewide and locally. So she literally cannot do it all. And we desperately need a senior center supervisor. It was put in the budget as a request. $130,000 is what we put in there. It, of course, was denied. That was a dirty look, yeah. It is to the point where with that high volume of people coming through, staff is starting to feel it. The seniors are starting to notice. We used to have 1 person at the front counter. Now we have 3. They're all volunteers. But, you know, heaven forbid Amy is out of the office. There is nobody there to answer questions or to lead the team. So it's really getting critical. We also asked for a full-time recreation specialist. That's another person to help out. And obviously that was denied too. But this is, I think, the most critical out of my entire department is getting a full-time senior center supervisor, which is obviously general funded. Recreation section, it's basically flatter. It's actually reduced. The reason I say that is it's pretty much the same, but we have had increases in wages and benefits, but we're trying to be as tidy as we can with our general fund. In that department or division also, we asked for another recreation specialist. Again, wasn't given that position. So a little history on this division, in 2008, we had 6 full-time positions. We had a supervisor, a rec specialist, and 4 rec leaders. Right now, we have a supervisor, a rec specialist, and 2 full-time rec leaders, and then a bunch of part-timers back then and now. But just, we're in the same boat as PD that we have not recovered from 2008, 2009. And we expect to do about 120,000 duplicated participants, so every time somebody comes, in 80 programs in FY 24-25. And then finally, the one that's a little bit easier is transit. So here's my bus, or trolley. So transit has 4 new full-time bus driver positions. This is not general fund, so this is transit funding. We have a little bit more flexibility, and we do have 4 new full-time bus driver positions. We'll convert a few of the part-timers. We have slightly increased the budget. It's about $1.5 million extra for bus purchases. It also includes funding for some projects that are going to be done. For instance, the route redesign and redoing the bus stops that are required as part of that. Whenever you touch a bus stop, it has to be ADA compliant, so we have to make sure we're doing them right. And then we have about $3.5 million in federal funds that we're going to start drawing down for the first time in 24-25. It also allows us, this is operational funds, but allows us the opportunity to apply for capital grants. So whether it be for vehicles or hopefully for a corp yard to be able to house all of these new electric vehicles and all the infrastructure with that. And of course, our long-term plans are just for that, a new corp yard and operations center. And that is general services.
Vaughn? Oh,
yeah.
Matt.
I know, let that go.
Didn't even.
Yeah, let's see.
No, go ahead, really, you must.
Well, the mayor asked, I better ask. Solar, are we different, does NEM 3 affect us?
Because what did you say?
NEM, the new net
solar
energy metering, does it affect us? And are we looking into maybe batteries, or are we using it all that we're producing, so it doesn't even, we don't even?
Are you talking about on facilities?
Yeah, like all the solar that we have, and so like moving forward, and how, you know, if you produce too much, you get no reimbursement, and PG&E just kind of takes it for free.
Stephen can correct me if I'm wrong, but the projects we have now are not under the new requirements. But what we might get hit with at the senior center and transit and Fire Station 6 is we may have to pay them because we made too much power and they didn't get their return from their investment, correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah, so PG&E, when they do their Rule 16, which is them bringing in new power to a facility, they have estimated costs. They have costs to bring in their equipment, their manpower. And so normally what they do is they try to recapture that in the first 3 years of you getting service. Well, we got a little gung-ho and we decided to put the solar on now, especially with the cost that I'm seeing in the PG&E of what we're expending out there. So after the 3 years, they will submit me a bill saying, hey, you're going to owe me this many thousands of dollars for our service. Nothing, yeah. Yeah, it was an ordeal when we first started talking with them about the solar. They threw up all kinds of red flags, and I was like, okay, well, what can we do? They're like, well, you're going to get a bill. I was like, okay, I'd rather save the money now, and we can talk about the bill later.
Oh, terrible news. Okay.
Oh, yeah, the current projects are not.
The question on the positions you put in your report, are you just reporting, or are you asking?
I'm begging.
She's not asking.
Because that's not a lot of money, I don't think. I think we need that. I mean, with that senior center being such a jewel to that community, I think you will start attracting even more people who have the ability to give towards the foundation. And so, but we need to keep our end and run it really well. And so I am in full support of whatever we need to do to get those senior center positions. I know that John said no, but
Are you willing to give up one police officer?
That's just it. I think at this point,
I'm willing to give up some reserves.
well, at this point, I'm just here to tell you what we're looking for, and then I think over the next few weeks, that's for you all to hash out once police and fire do theirs as well.
Well, we never hashed out numbers before. I don't ever remember. And so, like, how does that process go, Scott? But I am in full support. I don't know how the council and the city manager goes through this process, but we need that. I mean, our seniors deserve that. We gave them everything, and then now our staff is gonna be overworked. And so I believe that our seniors are way worth that. So, Mayor, maybe you can help direct how this all goes, because you've been in this.
I think what John is intending is that we'll hear the whole, and then we can, if there's something, so I think we can note, I actually agree with you. We didn't just spend whatever millions of dollars to have nobody running it, so I think it's an investment. I don't necessarily see it's a trade-off in the police department, but I think if there's some agreement or whatever, but here's the suggestion, let's try to fund those jobs. When you all get it all done in front of us, then you'll be able to kind of adjust, we can do this but not that, et cetera. So that's my understanding of what you want to have happen, right, John? So noted, and let them, when we wrap it all up in June, we can come back and see what that looks like.
And
I think you're not wrong, Sean.
The only thing I would add would be that, can you turn that on? You mentioned the use of reserves. Jay would tell me, don't ever use one-time monies for ongoing costs.
However we fix it, that's all. However we find it, I think we have the ability to do that. And so I hear you, and I want to support that, so that's all I'm saying.
Anything else? Oh, Matt.
Yeah.
What was your name again? Matt.
So, just a couple of comments regarding your positions that you were in need of, and also the rec center. I've brought that up before, that we need to find some form of revenue or sourcing to maintain, having a place for our youth to go and developing those programs. It always seems as, the minute we get into recession or start talking about cutting numbers, it's, the youth programs are the first to go and that kind of thing. So I still like the idea and the concept of the senior center potentially being a revenue source of itself. I know we talked about the space now being for something different that you're bringing back, but, that was my contention back when we first talked about this was, losing that revenue source meant we lose things like this, having a supervisor that could be in that room potentially based on the monies generated. And then the other thing, I know a lot of us have probably been spoken to about, billboards and electronic billboards, but while we may not like billboards necessarily, this may be an opportunity where it's tied to the rec center and the funds generated from that go directly to the rec center as a potential for funding sources and stuff. So I know that's a topic to talk about down the road, but I do think there's options out there for us as a city to start looking at from maybe a private sector standpoint of helping pay for some of these programs going forward. So that's all I wanted to say about that. Thank you, Shauna.
Thank you. Anything else for Shauna? Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So that concludes our list of budget hearings tonight. Do you need any action to continue the last two till May 20th, or is that understood?
Yeah, motion to continue to May 20th would be great.
All right. So thank you to our teams, leaders and teams that all sat through this tonight. We appreciate it. So I would entertain a motion to continue the fire and police department budgets till May 20th, if there's interest in that.
Do you want to open up for public comment?
No, kidding. Sorry. Public comment, sorry. I see three publics. Any of the three of you like to comment? All right. No public comment. Sorry about that. Entertain a motion to continue the final two items till May 20th.
I'll make a motion to continue the fire department and police department's budget to May 20th.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Is there other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So we'll do police and fire on May 20th?
Yes.
Is May 20th a holiday? Why is it red on the calendar up there?
Boxing Day.
Who?
Victoria Day.
Victoria Day. I thought that was a holiday. I'm just kidding. All right. So thank you, everybody, for your time tonight. I appreciate it. One last administrative hearing, and that's to consider the adoption of an ordinance 24-02, rezone 2021-009, an ordinance of the Clovis City Council approving a request to pre-zone property within the development area, approximately 77 acres, of the project site from the Fresno County AL 20 zone district to the Clovis R1 PRD Zone District associated with approximately 155 acres of land located on the north side of Shepherd Avenue between North Sunnyside and North Fowler Avenues. And that vote was 4 in favor, no opposed, and 1 absent. I was the absent. Andy?
Yeah, this item is on the regular agenda because of the absence and is required to be on the regular agenda for confirmation vote this evening.
All right, thank you. And I am familiar with the actions taken and the issues, so I'm comfortable voting on it tonight. Is there any public comment on this item? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion as stated on the agenda if there's interest in that.
A motion to adopt ordinance 24-02 R 2021-009, ordinance of the Clovis City Council approving a request to pre-zone property within the development area, approximately 77 acres of the proposed site from the County of Fresno AL20 Zone District to the City of Clovis R1 PRD Zone District associated with approximately 155 acres of land located on the north side of Shepherd Avenue between North Sunnyside and North Fowler Avenues.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. City manager comments.
Real quickly, the only thing I wanted to point out was that I forgot to mention this evening was going to be the heavy lift by the finance department for the development of the budget itself. Of course, they've all left, but I want to point out that Jay, Gina, Susan, Jose, and Jeff, while all the departments work hard on their portions of the budget, it's the finance department that puts hundreds of hours into the development of one of their 2 major documents, and I wanted to thank them, and I'll bring it up again next week when we get back together. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Council comments. Matt?
I have none.
Diane?
I have none.
Drew?
None.
Fong?
Matt and I went to the Salute the Patriots, which is something that has gotten so much attention because many times in our communities we celebrate those who are athletes who sign to go to different colleges, but then our memorial district actually recognizes those who make the ultimate sacrifice and go into the armed services. And so I think every year when we go, it's always a very patriotic, but at the same time, very wonderful event. Went to Trail Fest. I wanted to commend all the departments that actually came out, and then for Shauna and for Amy doing such a excellent job riding your scooters back and forth or bikes just to make sure everything went well. And so thank you for putting that on. I think the community is just starting to learn more and more about it. And so it's an awesome event. To Scott, saw the cement sign for Historic Home Ranch, and so that place is starting to get the trail, and so that's exciting for that neighborhood to slowly see something happening there. And then just to Chad, Economic Development, the third place had its soft opening, which is just neat for south of 5th, that part of Old Town that needs, some flavor and some revitalization. And so that's an eatery. It's kind of cool. The story is your first place is your home, your second place is your job, and your third place should be here and come and mingle and try different foods. So that's the meaning behind it. So just attended that as well. That's all.
And just quickly, I wanted to comment, and maybe you could pass on to the folks at EDC. I noticed last week in the agenda they had their quarterly report, and not because I whined, but that they did a much better job of speaking to Clovis, not just a general template. I did meet with Will Oliver. We talked a little bit about, what I thought, just for me, what I thought would be more helpful. And the example that he had done was they led with job creation, and the job that they identified was like, I don't know, it wasn't Krispy Kreme, but it was something like that. And I just said, that's not job creation. Like, in my mind, I'm not paying you $50,000 for donuts or whatever it was. And I appreciate that they took, again, feedback of one person. But this, I think, is a legitimate look at what they've done for Clovis, and I want to commend them. So if you could pass that on to Will and his team, I just wanted to note that.
And Mayor, I don't know if you noticed, but, because you weren't here, but they actually did show up with staff, and pulled it off the consent calendar and commented on the item.
Oh, excellent. I did not,
They were here, and they did a good job.
Yeah, and I think that's right and good, and so I appreciate that very much. So if you can just let them know that I noticed that. I'll report out that I went to COG. I don't know when that was. It was sometime in April. I think it's just standard business. We did have our first meeting of our Safe Routes to School Committee. So we are forming a county-wide committee, and the goal is to make every kid in Fresno County get to school safely, period. Whether that's with existing Measure C dollars, new federal funding, or whatever the source is, but there isn't a kid in Fresno County that should worry about walking to school. It's really not acceptable. So I'm really excited about what's happening. And the coolest thing is the staff that are leading this work are two of COG's newer staff, and it's just great to see them like picking on a project and trying to sort it out. So I think it's really a great project. So more to come on that. And then I did attend on Friday night the Marine Corps League K-9 Awards, and to Clovis PD, who took first place, Officer Mulhern and his partner Kai. Adorable. I know that's not what they want to describe a canine dog, but anyway, it was really, it was a great event, and it was fun to be part of honoring Clovis PD, so nice job. And I think that's all I know. So we are going to go into closed session. The item is printed on the agenda, and we are not going to take action. There will be nothing else to report out. All right, so thanks for coming, everybody. Have a good rest of the day, evening, whatever's left. Not much.